made it. This is God's Comic Brad Stein, and this is Brad Stein Has Issues, where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. Tonight's guest is a very special brother, one of four or quattro brothers that you've heard of, a Baldwin, and this one happens to be Daniel Baldwin of the Alex and Stephen and Billy fame. So four guys that became professional actors, which is not easy to do, to become one guy, but for four brothers of the same family to have actually made a living being actors, that is one of a kind. And it is Daniel Baldwin, who I actually performed in a movie with, I'm guessing 10 years ago, called Christmas with a capital C. We're even going to have a little clip of him and I in a scene together. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be important. Why is it important? Because life goes on whether you like it or not. Difficulties happen day by day, step by step, whether you like it or not. You're not going to make it go away. You're not going to fix it. You can complain, you can argue, you can wish that life was easier and that everything went exactly the way you planned, but it is never going to do that. It never has in history, and it never will. And that is why you have to do what every human has done throughout history, and that is question the meaning of life. And that's exactly what we're going to discuss just a little bit today, because there's a lot of things that are happening on Earth. We're going to talk about how atheists see the world, because they are the ones that I most like to comment about, because it is, in fact, the original religious cult is atheism. And so I talk about it. I want to see, is it consistent? Can it live up to its hype? Is it actually live, and do they make decisions based on atheistic foundations? And so we're going to talk about that. We have fires today raging through Los Angeles, California. We need to discuss that and decide, why would God let that happen? But before I do all of that, I want to say thank you for showing up, especially for all my people that come every Monday live. For those of you who are just perusing live, I am Brad Stein. I'm guessing you probably have heard of me, and you saw some of my comedy, and you saw this notification that I'm jumping on. What you didn't know was my son, Wyatt Stein, who exuded from my loins. I created him from a whole cloth, and now today he is my sidekick, my producer, my director, and my shoe shiner. Wyatt, great to have you. How are you, son? How was your week?
My week was, well, it was there all right.
That didn't really completely answer
Convince you?
Yeah, I was looking for something a little bit deeper, a little bit more profound, something that people listening could feel even better about themselves when they hear how miserable your week was, and go, well, at least that wasn't Wyatt's week.
I mean, doesn't that mean that my answer was brilliant then?
Yeah, I guess so.
Because that's exactly what people are probably feeling right now.
I think so. You know what? There's a lot of tragedy happening throughout the country, but especially in L.A. Have you been catching up on these fires?
Yeah, they're fires, all right. They burn hot and
ruthless.
Yeah.
Fire. I mean, would you? I always thought, like, if you had to die from freezing to death or burning to death, I'm thinking freeze.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that the firefighters in charge are, well, some of them are incompetent, to say the least.
Yeah, they have basically given incompetence a run for its money.
Yeah. Did you actually see the interview that, like, what is it, the fire chief or something said?
Yeah, I did. The one where
Whoever.
They said that they were asked, well, what if my husband was in a burning building and you needed to carry him, because it's a woman, you need to carry him on your back all the way out. To paraphrase, she said something to the effect of, listen, if your husband is in... This is coming from a fireman that's job is to go into burning buildings and pull people out. That's what they signed up for. It's why they make the big bucks and why they get 2 weeks off every month. But she said, listen, if he got himself in that position, that's bad on him. He should probably have thought twice before he went to sleep in a building that was about to catch on fire. So, I mean, Wyatt, it's like a script. It's like a cartoon. You think it's a satire, which, by the way, would be a great clip. It would
It honestly sounds like a bad Monty Python sketch.
It's, a good Monty Python sketch, actually.
It depends on what they do with the rest of it.
Well,
actually.
because think about the whole concept could be based on on that idea. It's like, so Chief, I noticed you're a woman. You want to be a policeman, but my husband, he weighs 300 pounds. He's on his top floor, and the burning building is on fire. But you're going to rush in. Are you going to be able to grab him in a fireman's hole? They literally have a fireman's like carry, and bring him out. And the chief says, well, if he got himself in a burning building, I really think that it's kind of on him. He's the one that ended up in a place he really didn't belong all around. Okay, thank you, Chief. Any more questions? Yeah. So what happens if we run out of water when we're trying to put everything down? Does that have anything to do with the fact that you decided that diversity, equity, inclusion was more important and you wanted to put money into the party when you announced DEI over having water in case things went well? If people feel like helping their home that's on fire, which, by the way, is a 35-year-old home, it's seen better days. Meanwhile, we're a brand new hire, and I think they need to be celebrated. We need to celebrate people's new job because it's brand new, whereas your house was old. In other words, the whole thing could have been absurd satire about how people don't have to do their job as long as they feel good about themselves, which is what DEI, which is what identity culture, which is what political correctness, which is what critical race theory. All of the crazy is all about that idea of we are responsible for no destruction. We are responsible for nothing going wrong. We are responsible for nothing not working from our ideas that we implemented that completely collapsed. It doesn't matter, and I'll tell you why. Because I feel good about me. And that's really all that matters. And I got to tell you something. I've noticed in life, and this is hard. I don't know if you know this. I'm a Christian. Did I ever tell you that?
That explains so much.
Yeah. Probably my kindness, my ability to help the downtrodden, and
your chivalry, unmatched in all the lands.
Indeed, son, and my ability to find the good in all the things that happen and try to find
every single one of the things.
Yeah, all the things. When I see the things happen, I'll say that thing needs to be thought of in a different light because people are putting it down.
You know how to do it with these things, those things, everythings.
And Wyatt, I do it with vim and vigor. And that's what you don't see from, for example, a Buddhist that don't seem to. Because remember, Buddhism is trying to reach nothingness, where they not only don't feel bad about bad things or good about good things, they don't feel anything, and thus they are in perfect nirvana. And which, by the way, that person should be a fire chief somewhere in L.A.
Wait. So if you don't care about anything, good or bad, and that's the whole end goal, how do you know when you get there?
You don't, and that means you got there.
How many Buddhist monks do you think are out there right now who have achieved nirvana and just haven't realized it yet?
All of them.
All of them? Even the newcomer?
Yeah.
The DEI hire?
That's it.
Who just entered the job this morning?
Well, a DEI Buddhist would be, one thing, he'd be really skinny.
Yeah. Really striking it hard with the political commentary there.
Well, you know how the Buddha is always projected.
Well, yeah, I would think that would make the DEI hire extra Buddha-esque.
Oh. He's even worse off than the original Buddha.
I mean,
even less able to run hurdles.
Look, you've seen Buddha.
Yeah.
Clearly, that's the body type they're aiming for. Okay. Otherwise, they wouldn't be glorifying it. So.
And aren't they usually vegetarians?
I thought that was vegan, I think.
Why? How many calories of lettuce how much poundage, how many heads do you have to chomp on to get fat eating?
It's like 70% water. So does that make it's just water weight then?
Probably. So maybe that's the big key to reaching nirvana. You don't care about the evil, you don't care about the good, because there's neither. You're in perfect nirvana. You have experienced absolute contentment and there's only one thing left. I really have to pee.
I mean, especially if they're down in coffee to stay awake through that meditation.
Right, that's right.
Like, how do they do that for that long?
I don't know. Well, do you remember the Buddha? You don't. You were young, but you might have heard.
No, I don't remember the Buddha. Why? You got an autograph from him?
I don't, but I'll tell you what I did. Autograph that would presume he exists, and he kind of and he faded away. But here's
Into the ether.
Into the ether
With the Easter Bunny.
Did you ever see? Have you ever see the guy that protested Buddhist who protested the Vietnam War like around '63 and lit himself on fire? It's a very famous. It was shown on TV, and this guy poured gas over, lit himself on fire while he was in his Buddha pose, and just burned to death. But he didn't scream or what. He just remained in perfect. Whatever, probably just too weak to scream because of the lettuce, and wanted to say put it out, but he's I'm just too tired.
Probably naturally fire retardant from all the water.
Or that, yeah, maybe that's what kept him
going.
Hold
on. Do you think we could solve the California wildfires by sending a bunch of Buddhas there
and dropping them on a lot of airplanes?
Yeah, and just like a bunch of Buddhist monks just paragliding, parachuting down.
Well, here's the thing that I wanted to talk about, Ellie. Now, you were born in California, so whether you remember that or not, I don't remember how much you remember the day of your birth. I do, but you were born in Irvine, California, and that's where you're from. So you're a Californian. I lived in California for 30 years. It's a beautiful state. It's an amazing state. There is no better state,
really?
Pound for pound of all 50 states. If you are defining the value of states on its geography, its climate, its ability to make crops, oil, water, gas, wine, beaches.
So all of that stuff. I noticed one thing you didn't say was a plus, your neighbors.
What do you mean?
Any single person. You didn't mention a single person. Or a group of people.
Oh,
it's all about the nature and stuff. It's not about the actual people you have to live with.
No. But yeah, okay. And there's, it's like anything. It's a roll of the dice. Yeah. There were some great people, and there were some not. No, what I was making reference to was California. Yeah. Listen, I've mocked and made fun of California for years because of their policies, and their policies are now coming home to roost. I might add, Governor Newsom, your policies of not making sure the reservoirs were filled, your policies in L.A., Mayor Bass, of not making sure that money went to the fire department, instead went to all of these other lunacy, progressive ideas. And now you're paying the price. And I am not happy. I am not gleeful. I saw a woman on the internet, like doing I don't know, Instagram, whatever. She goes, listen, all you right-wingers out there, I know that you are so excited that all these California homes are burning down, and you're glad it's happening. And I know that. You know how I know that? I know that because it's how I feel when a tornado or a hurricane is coming through South Carolina, North Carolina, a red state, and all I say is, please, please, only hit white trailer parks. Now, this is what this woman literally said, and I'm thinking, okay, for two things, you wish people who vote differently than you are killed, are wiped from the face of the earth. But what is most telling is she projected on us, I know you wish ill on us because we're California, we're a blue state, because that's how I think of you. And what she doesn't understand is, no, it's exactly that we aren't like you is why we vote red. We want America to be strong all throughout the nation. We want every state to be strong, and you don't have to vote like us. Obviously, we think conservative values and absolutely Christian foundation like this country is based on is the only way this country survived, made it this far, was blessed, and will continue. There's no other way to do it. But we don't wish evil on you because these are people whose lives have been destroyed, and some of them are maybe far left progressive people. That's true. But because so many conservatives are Christian-based, we're not allowed to hate people that hate us. We're not allowed. Doesn't mean people haven't done it or that we don't suffer the consequences of our sinful nature. I'm not saying we do it perfectly, but that it was so telling to say, yes, we want destruction on you red staters. So I'm sure that's what you think about the book. And I don't want anybody to be, homes to be destroyed, their memories to be lost. I don't. What I do want is California to be run by people that can actually think clearly, who have conservative values, who honor God, who actually care more about competence than your ethnicity or who you have sex with. And that's what the only thing that I will say is, I guess, will be produced from this is not, I'm grateful to have you, I'm not, is that you are going to see that you reap what you sow. If this is who you vote for, it's literally going to burn your state to the ground, and you're watching it in real time. And here's the other thing. It reminded me of this when I saw this woman's post, because so oftentimes when these things happen, the first thing people say is, why would God do that? Why would God allow this to be destroying people, and why doesn't God intervene? And I understand, I'm a Christian. It is hard when we see evil happening or difficulty happening or hard things happening, and you think, God, just step in and fix it all. I actually did a joke about this one time, and so I give this to you just to see my observation of the idea of disasters and catastrophes. It's not any way to mock the fires at all, but it was talking about a hurricane and how it bringing in devastation. And maybe there is something else to consider when you think about where is God in the midst of this. As a matter of fact, it was a joke I wrote that I hope also had some poignancy. And if I'm not mistaken, White, you have your very own button that has the ability to launch that joke. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, son. I'm going to have you go ahead and launch it. Even if you want to put yourself on camera there and let people see it launch, be my guest. But let's let people see one of my takes on disasters.
All right, here we go.
Blaming is not what I'm about. I don't blame people. I try to take personal responsibility. If I make a mistake, by the way, I change. See, one of the things I've tried to live my life by is I don't care what I believe. I care about what is true. If the truth conflicts with my beliefs, I change my belief. That's what we're supposed to do as people. Not blame others. We blame people. We blame manufacturers. We blame food. We blame God. Something goes wrong, God should have been there intervening for us. The same God that apparently the Founding Fathers never wanted anywhere around us. Same God that started this country that we've gotten rid of, and yet, when something goes wrong, they're getting mad at God, but we want him out. That's all you ever hear. Get God out of the Boy Scouts. Get out of the Boy Scouts, God. Get off of our buddy, God. Get out of our universities, God. Get out of the military, God. Get out of our textbook, God. Get out of our homes, God. Get off of our televisions, God. Go away, God. We don't want you, God. We don't need you, God. Katrina hits. God, where are you? Where'd you go? Help us. You don't think God's going, make up your mind. You want me in or out? And we get mad at him. They had pastors. You remember that? Katrina hits. They had pastors on CNN asking him why God would let this happen. Remember that? Why would God let this happen to us? Because people that don't believe in God, they just can't take it when things are out of their control. So they just suddenly they're going back there. Why would God let this happen? Because something bad happened. But then again, I've never seen them once have a pastor on CNN, and they said, it's been a really nice day today. Why would God let that happen? Never gets any credit for doing something good, but boy, something bad happens. God, what have you done? Get all mad at God. And yet people that actually have a Judeo-Christian worldview understands that there's something that we believe in called natural disaster. Disasters are natural because once the fall hit, everything got screwed up. So disasters are now normal. Natural disaster. What do they call it out there? Act of God. Act of God. That's not in the Bible. You know who came up with that? Insurance companies. Yeah. That was their line, so they didn't have to pay off. Hey, sorry, your house got swept away by that hurricane. We'd love to pay you, but it's an act of God. Apparently, God didn't want you to have a house. Who are we to argue, with God? Anyways, keep them premiums coming, will you? Thanks. Act of God. But see, we didn't used to think like that in this country. In this country, there used to be the idea of discipline, the idea of personal responsibility, the idea that things happen bad, and what are you going to do with them? Because you always grow more from pain than pleasure. That's the unfortunate part of life. But the kids don't know. Because you're kids. How old are you? 12 years old. 12. You were born in the 90s. Isn't that embarrassing? You don't know nothing. 12 years old, and this poor kid has grown up in the world that we've given them because we didn't stand up and be warriors for truth and righteousness and goodness. No, you see, but we didn't get that. See, us older guys, we're a little bit stronger, a little bit more backbone. You know why? Because we could spank when we were kids. Spanking still happened back in them days. Remember that? I'm not talking about beating your kid or being evil. I'm talking about a big old spank on the butt. What do you think your butt was invented for? Doesn't have any other use. Good old spank on the butt, though, will take care of you. Why? It's not that complicated. Better be spanking you at 6 than looking for a bail bondsman at 16. It's not that hard to figure out. I want my kids to know. So as you can see, I have been pondering these things a long time. One of the things that made me, see the world the way I saw it, and of course it's my faith. It is the single most important part of my life, is how I see the world through God's eyes. Through the Messiah's eyes, the Jewish Messiah, Jesus, who then said, I'm for everybody, and did this amazing thing of, doing miraculous things and then dying and come back for life. And nobody else really pulled that off, including the Buddha, who was, all he was doing was, shopping for lettuce. But I tried to make my comedy, I guess, Wyatt, in the end, I wanted to make it sophisticated, poignant. I hoped it was smart. I am a fan, and people have mentioned, I remind them of George Carlin, and every comic that's existed in the last 30 years or more has been influenced by George Carlin. He, I think, is the smartest comic that's ever existed. The way he broke down words, ideas, thoughts, the little twists that he would find, it just was one of a kind. There will never be another guy like him. He is in hell right now. It breaks my heart. He was an atheist. He was very anti-God, and he mocked people like me who are Christians. And yet I could just watch the craft that he did, that God blessed him with. If you are good at something, God gave you that ability, whether you get it or not. And he decided that he was going to mock and ridicule that. And so I'm not in any way grateful that he's there. I wish the man could have spent eternity with me, and I'd love to talk comedy with him if people even talk about stuff that happens on earth. What do you think? Why do you think when you're done, you go to heaven, that you're going to care about going to somebody and saying, "Oh, you liked Zelda too, huh? Yeah, well, I happen to like Breath of the Wild." And you think we're even going to care about the stuff that happened on this earth, Wyatt, when we're in heaven?
That's a good question. Like, there were so many different depictions of what heaven is like.
Yeah.
And, well, there are certainly some similarities. Like, it's all nice and white and perfect.
Yeah.
I just feel like we've all missed the mark entirely.
Okay.
It really seems like one of those things that you don't ever truly know what's there until you get there.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't think anyone's gotten it completely correct.
I've heard of people that have the near-death experiences. I don't know if you've ever read about that. It's pretty fascinating.
Like,
It really is fascinating what these people have seen and done, and they've documented that they saw the surgeon doing stuff, and there's nothing they could have known because they were unconscious. But and some people said they went to heaven and came back, and the Bible does have instances of people seeing visions and this and that. So I don't know why it couldn't happen again. I've never seen anything like that, but I think if you were to probably examine one of the things that most people are concerned about in heaven, is it's going to be boring. I mean, part of the good news of sleeping is it kind of kills time, because I mean, if you were awake 24/7, you are going to kind of maybe run out of stuff to do, or you just get bored. I don't know. But
I never even thought about that. Do you sleep in heaven?
no, because you're not tired.
But why not? People like sleeping, and isn't heaven about stuff you like?
I heard, yes, that's a
So
good.
why can't we sleep? Why aren't there like 24/7 bed and breakfasts there?
Do you know what 24/7? So you think there's going to be 24-hour days?
No,
and 7 days?
24 millennia per eon. I don't know.
Okay,
Who knows?
Well, that makes.
Who knows?
So that's an easy calendar. It's like one day, just one square.
It's just one square.
It's Monday. Monday.
Oh, no, it couldn't be Monday in heaven. It'd be like Friday or Saturday.
Okay.
Like the good days.
Oh, okay. I see.
I think
so.
Monday,
It's Good Friday.
I think Monday's a hell thing. Wednesday's more purgatory.
All right, you're probably right. Well, I will say this: I have thought of that before. It's like, would it be boring? And people have thought this through. But here's I don't know. Have you ever thought about that you might get bored? Have you thought about that?
I guess I have. Yeah, it's like one of my biggest concerns is like, how long am I gonna enjoy this before I'm like, okay, something else, please.
Okay, but here's and I thought of that too. It's like, I don't know. And you also said some interesting, and I heard somebody say that. They said that, I think that, there'll be baseball in heaven. I think there'll be dogs in heaven. And it's like, why do you think that? And he goes, well, because these are things that I love, that give me pleasure on earth. Why would heaven have anything less there, which is pure pleasure, than what I have here? And it made me think about that because, for one thing, it said there'll be no night in heaven. Now, I think the evening can be nice and quiet and pleasant, and the stars are beautiful. So it's kind of like, I don't know, wouldn't night be a change? And
Just get blackout curtains, you're fine.
Oh, you could get blackouts? Yeah, like you're living in Alaska.
No, blackout curtains.
I understand.
Yeah. Not actual blackouts. That doesn't sound very heavenly.
Not at all.
So why would you think that that's what I meant?
Because God's calling down like you drinking again? Because that's why I
Is there alcohol in heaven? Question for the comments.
Yes, there is. Because he says at the great feast, they will have wine.
Man, so
and
can we assume that there's no Alcoholics Anonymous there?
No, because nobody is anonymous.
Or is it there, or is it completely different?
Well, there's no alcohol. You can't get like drunk, I guess.
Oh,
but what?
Would that be good though?
I have been sober 6 years. I don't drink, and so but by saying you're sober, it makes you sound even more important and virtuous. But I haven't had a drink in 6 years. But I'm going to next time I get a drink, Wyatt, we'll be in heaven. But I was thinking I think the Bible also talks about how the oceans, now maybe that was only when God recreates the earth for one last go around before it all comes to an end. But like the oceans are going to disappear. Well, why wouldn't you want to see the ocean and the beautiful waves, and it's beautiful? So it does seem like, man, it's going to miss some things are going to be missed, and I'm going to wish they were there. And my favorite weather, as you know, is?
Rainy thunderstorms.
Thunderstorms. It's like, are you telling me there's going to be thunderstorms and rain? And then
I mean, you're above the clouds. Why would there be rain?
There might
Unless
be.
it falls upwards.
It could. It's God. He can do what he wants. Oh, you want to worry about that pesky gravity.
I don't know.
Don't worry. We're not dealing with that here.
I feel like rain that goes upwards would be just 1,000 times more annoying, though.
Probably.
Because they don't invent umbrellas for your feet.
And maybe you can. Maybe there's an inventor state in heaven that everybody goes and creates things. But here was what I was thinking. I'm being serious here for a second, believe it or not. I was thinking, well, you're going to be bored. Well, you're going to be in God's presence, and that's going to be so awe-inspiring that I think that there's so much going on that we can't fathom because we're finite beings. But the other thing that just suddenly occurred to me not that long ago, and I don't know how I didn't think this through, but it's like God can make every day, if there's days, every moment, if there's moments, I don't know what it's going to be like, but he is eternal and can do anything, which means whatever new experience that you've never seen before can take place, and then another, and then another. And there will never be an end to the diversity and the variety of stuff. Maybe suddenly it does rain meteors, and then another day you find yourself floating, everybody floating today. And I mean, it could be an endless experience of what's next. Or you're in so complete contentment that nothing else is necessary. I don't know. What I do know is God said that the eye has not seen, nor the ear has heard, nor has entered in the hearts of man the things that God has prepared for those that love him, which means whatever sounds I think are beautiful, that I think I'd like to hear there, there's sounds there that you haven't heard before that you can't compare. Never seen it. Well, I've seen sunsets and I've seen beautiful mountain ranges, and I know you have. But wait do you see here, because there's stuff here you've never seen. You've never even thought and ever entered into your heart. You can't even imagine. Bart Millard, who we had here on this desk a year or two ago, who wrote I Can Only Imagine. Beautiful song and very uplifting song and a wonderful song, but it's not a true song, because the Bible says we can't imagine what it's going to be like. And that is good. That's a wonderful thing. And so it makes me wonder why atheists are so quick to question things about God. And when I see and hear some of their questions, so often I feel like they're very myopic and shallow, and for sure, they're not thinking about God. They're not picturing, well, what would God be if he existed? What would be like? You're talking about a guy that knows everything. He has nothing to learn. Somebody can do anything, and somebody that is all places simultaneously. But you're going to try to decide, yeah, you should have intervened over here and put that fire out, and that kid shouldn't have got cancer. And that's what makes sense to me. You should have done that. And so they begin to judge God based on their perspective of what is just, right, and good. By the way, all concepts they wouldn't have had unless God existed. Every time they try to disprove God, virtually every time, it's, to me, a clue that God exists that they ignore because they can't understand it. Matter of fact, I'd like to go into another one of our moments of truth on Brad Stein Has Issues, where I'm going to discuss this particular idea in detail. So guess what? I have decided we're going to have a brand new segment on Brad Stein Has Issues, a moment of truth by God's comic Brad Stein. This is something I want you to ponder. If you have kids, I have a question for you today. Before you decided to have children, did you even think about the consequences of what might be the result of their existence? What I mean by that is, did you take the time to ponder what your child might experience or what they might grow up to be? See, most of us certainly don't sit around and wonder if it's worth it to have a child, if it means they may experience pain in their life. Because the truth of the matter is this: every human being will go through terrible moments of anguish, as well as amazing moments of joy. When someone begins to ponder what it might be like to become a parent, we only tend to look at it as something that will be a miraculous experience. We begin to picture in our mind what it will be like to look at a new human created from whole cloth simply because you and your wife were in love and wanted to pass it on to someone like you. Parents are looking at something that is a direct reflection of themselves. He or she looks like one of you or both of you. They are brand new and wouldn't even exist if your love didn't exist first. You get the pleasure of smelling this fresh from the factory infant fragrance that is a bit like the smell of a new car, but unfortunately, you can't trade it in after 3 years for a new model. No, the reality is you are stuck with the one you get, warts and all. You realize as well that this human that relies completely on you will one day find you to be rather ignorant of the ways of the world and kind of in their way when it comes to their own usually selfish desires and perspectives that usually are inspired more from their friends and social media than yourself. If you were truly a contemplative, though, You might have taken time to ruminate on the fact that if I do decide to have this child, and by the way, are fortunate enough to be able to, that much pain and anxiety will also come with the package. Every murderer in prison was somebody's baby once. Somebody's parents who had amazing hopes and dreams for this baby of theirs. By the way, there is something extremely rare that we possess as babies. If you're listening to this, by the way, that is one thing you have in common with me. All of us were babies once. We were just fortunate enough to get big. So, whenever you see a gathering of grown-ups, that is literally what you are looking at. A bunch of big babies. When we are babies, it is the only time in our existence we have one unique trait we will soon lose forever. When you are a baby, you are innocent. This is the reason why it is so heartbreaking and devastating when a child gets cancer or is killed in a car accident or even worse. We are designed to see innocence as something that is beautiful and sacred and to be defended at all costs. We don't want to come to terms with the fact that as our innocent child grows from completely reliant on you to becoming an autonomous human, that they may choose to become a thief or a drug addict or even come to hate you someday. But the truth is, throughout human history, that is exactly what parents have experienced. When you choose to have a child, you go in knowing that as much as you want to raise them to be the best of citizens and to contribute back to society, it is possible that your child will instead become one of the worst of us. We don't hesitate to have a child knowing full well that they will be bullied and insulted and beaten up. Our child may very well be killed in an accident or get drunk and kill someone else. Our child might steal from us and insult us and become completely ungrateful for the sacrifice we have given them. They won't understand the sleepless nights, the anguish of an emergency room visit, the pain of seeing them left out of parties and games and dates. We may very well see their dreams dashed or their hopes destroyed, and we can do nothing to remedy it other than to love them, to be there for them, and to never forsake them. As flawed human beings, we still feel the joy and the love and the miracle of life is worth the gamble to bring them into the world. Would anyone think for a minute that humans should cease having children because of the evil that will come their way? Or do we somehow realize that knowing all the risks involved, having children is still a holy, sacred duty that is worth all the anxiety, potential heartache, and is in fact our destiny? So my friends, my question is simple. If we as humans believe taking this risk is worth everything that may result, why, I ask you, do atheists get angry at God for doing the same thing? Had God not allowed them to exist, they wouldn't be here to complain about it. Atheists have broken the Father's heart, and yet he was willing to risk that in the hopes they would choose an eternal relationship with the Father of all things. That is a love they simply cannot comprehend. We as humans do the risky things and are willing to pay the price because we think in the end it's worth it. And nobody complains unless God does the same thing. This is God's Comic, Brad Stein. And that was your moment of truth. I don't know, Wyatt. What do you think? You think we're on to something?
Maybe, but we still have the rest of the banter to record, so...
The what?
The rest of the banter. That's not the end of it.
Oh, no. I meant the end of this new segment that I've included.
I don't know yet. This is not the first time we've tried it.
Uh-huh.
It never lasts.
Okay.
I'm not seeing why it should last this time.
Would you like it to last, son?
Potentially.
All right.
But I'm not the one who decided that.
Okay. Well, who is?
I don't know. Probably you. You're the one who writes them.
I write them, but you are the one that runs the teleprompter. And if
you are the one who fails to listen to it.
I do. I get confused. Did you notice, by the way, that the added finish was something I did on the fly extemporaneously, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to let you know your daddy knows how to make some magic with words, man. I'm a rhetorician.
And yet he can't read them when they are literally staring him right in the face.
You know what, Wyatt? I've always considered reading overrated.
Is that because you can't?
It's because I can't read well. I am lexicodic, and I find myself in
Oh, you're dyslexic, and that means it's hard to read. Buddy, do you even see what I see in the teleprompter?
no.
The text is mirrored vertically and horizontally, so it appears right side up for you. I had to follow you with backwards words the
Really?
entire time.
How come?
Because that's the only way it appears normal for you. For instance, let me undo those changes just so you can see what I see.
Okay. Hey, isn't that a song? Do you see what I see? A monitor.
So
That's
this,
backwards, upside down.
that is what you see. That's what I see. Okay? Try to follow that. You know what? Let's run the teleprompter again. Let's follow that, huh?
Do you have any idea, son, how easy that would be if we lived in Australia?
Well, I mean, I guess.
Go ahead and run it. I want to try something. Go ahead
Sure,
and start
sure.
it. If you have kids, I have a question for you today. Before you decided to have children, did you ever think about the consequences of what? It's going so slow now.
I
Anyway,
wanted to give you a handicap.
yeah, but I was reading it upside down just to let you know that I am, in fact, bordering on genius.
Yet you couldn't read it when it was right side up.
So let me ask you this, Wyatt. What do you remember in your life as the most painful moment of your life?
The time I broke my arm.
Okay, that was the most painful physical moment. Did it hurt?
It wouldn't be the most painful physical moment if it didn't.
Okay. What about just a moment in your life that was maybe emotionally painful?
Oh, yeah.
Like what?
The time I accidentally canceled my own surprise birthday party because I had to go to work at Lowe's.
You canceled what?
My own surprise birthday party, which I didn't know was going to happen because it was a surprise.
Oh, my God.
I literally had nightmares for weeks about feeling guilty about that.
Well, you mean your friends had a party for you and you didn't?
Yeah. I canceled it thinking we weren't going to do anything because work said go.
That doesn't make any sense. Your friend said, "Hey, you want to hang out on this day?"
Yeah. Just normal hangout, nothing special.
So it
going
wasn't
on.
your actual birthday, so you didn't think it had anything to do with your birthday.
No, it was like the day after.
So you're thinking, okay, we're just hanging. And so you said, sure, I'll do it. And then work calls, hey, you want to come in or can you come in? And you said, sure. And then came
It was more like you're coming in.
oh. But you weren't scheduled.
No.
So you could have said, no, I got a plan, but you didn't know about the plan. So that's not your fault. How could it be your fault to cancel something you didn't know existed? Wyatt, I need you to give yourself some more
That
grace.
doesn't make me feel any better.
I didn't say you felt better, and it's nice that you cared that your friends tried so hard to do something kind for you, but it wasn't
Also,
your fault.
the Wyatt cam is currently going to be out for the rest of the day because it just said it overheated.
Okay, well, now we know the challenges that
Yes.
we face with the GoPro, and we might
Now
have
we
to,
know that apparently GoPros are good fire starters if you're lost in the wilderness.
well,
Just record a TikTok of yourself stranded and boom, instant campfire.
all right. Well, I definitely realize that this is not something that we need in our little tiny studio that works so hard to be a big boy studio. And a big boy studio that not only has apparently given some people some solace and has given some people some inspiration and has given some people some hope and some, I hope, some push to becoming better, to becoming Christ followers. Folks, if you're watching this, I want you to understand something. I wanted to create something that would be fun to watch, entertaining, but also informative, and I hope convicting, almost like a little TV show instead of just a podcast, but had depth of insight and wisdom. I remember doing my comedy. Matter of fact, this is my album from Put a Helm On. You can't see it from that angle, but this is basically the album in giant banner. Put a Helmet On, and that was my first Christian comedy DVD, and I wanted it to be sophisticated. I wanted comedy that Christians could feel good about and feel was sophisticated, the stuff they would see in a nightclub, which is where I learned all this. But it did not compromise my faith. I didn't use curse words. I wasn't crude, right? And I wanted people to feel proud as Christians about this is the kind of comedy they could bring a non-believer to, and you go, okay, this is actually good. This isn't like churchy. And so I wanted the podcast to do the same thing. And our hope in 2025 is that it continues to grow. And that's why we tried the Moment of Truth, which is really a derivative of the original Brad Stein Has Issues that was shot in California that you guys have seen clips of. And so we're going to continue to grow it. If you guys joined the mighty 10,000 and you're there, you need to rejoin this. Now your number is your number, but to maintain it of the mighty 10, it's $36 for the whole year, guys. But it's the only way we can continue to grow this. So it's kind of like we have to be able to buy more gear, more equipment, and I hope maybe to add sketches. I'm not sure. I mean, this is going to take time, and it takes money. It takes editing time. Wyatt finally finished and graduated from college, so he has more time here. But it takes a lot of time to do editing, so I got to pay him, and eventually I got to give him raises, and I don't have any money to do that. So we're going to see if we can make this work. Please, please subscribe if you haven't already to Brad Stein Has Issues on YouTube. Share it, like it, comment so that it builds some algorithmic reach. And hopefully, just hopefully, we'll turn it into something that can reach a large group. And hopefully, all you guys watching that, I know who you are, you know who I am, but we are moving into a whole new realm of how this podcast will look, mainly for people that have never watched it before. So I'm kind of trusting my fans, and you, again, you guys know who I'm talking about, that you're here because you just participate in this ministry. And help us grow. You're the on-the-ground forces. And we did finish Laugh While It's Legal taping. Nick Kress, St. Nick was there. And so that will soon hopefully be hitting shelves so everybody can see that. And I'll start working on my next album if that ever comes to be. But for right now, I hope you see, even with some of the changes of the look of the studio, and there will be more to come. I hope this becomes such an interesting, fun, unique, if I can find it, flavorful podcast, unlike anything else there, that you guys will be proud to know that you were part of it and God used you to help grow it, and that it becomes something that people might want to see on a larger platform and maybe see more often. Time will tell. Speaking of time, we are time to bring on my guest. The guest that you are about to listen to is someone I met, I think, again, I'm guessing 10 years ago, maybe 2015, maybe 2010, 2008, maybe it was, now that I'm thinking about it, so maybe 15 years ago. But it was on set in Seward, Alaska. It was, I think, January or February. It was snowy. It was beautiful. There were shots that I did with Ted McGinley on a pier with literal fishing boats like you see in America's, lobster catchers, whatever it was, that danger thing. Unbelievable, with the mountains going out right down into the ocean. There was had never been in a place that had the stunning effects of Alaska. So that's where we shot it. It became I guess, kind of a perennial Christmas movie. That was launched from a song by a group called Go Fish called Christmas with a capital C. Once they put that out and they sampled my comedy from Put a Helmet On, where I was talking about Christmas and not saying Merry Christmas, it became a big hit on Christian radio back in those days, 15 years ago. And then that became, Andrea Nasfeld was given a script to write. She did, and it became a full-blown movie. I was the first one hired, and it was based on my comedy character. So if you've ever seen the movie, you'll see little inside Easter egg jokes I did in some of my dialogue that came from my comedy album, and I threw it in there for people that would know, they would know. And so that was the fun of it. It was a great fun to do this movie, and I got to do it with Daniel Baldwin, who is the next guest. He's an actor. He's of the Baldwin brothers. We're going to talk about his brothers. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about his life, about the things he's gone through, and about his faith. And so this is exciting. I think you're going to enjoy it. I've had some actors on before. We're going to get more. But for those of you, and I know a handful of you out there who watch regularly, are big, love arts, love performers, love musicians, love acting. So I think you enjoy these actors and people in the acting field. And so here's a guy that's probably been in 150 movies and is of a pedigree that, of course, you guys have heard, especially with his big brother, Alec. So that being said, thank you once again for showing up, I think, for week 2 of Brad Stein Has Issues in January of 2025. So that being said, sayonara. Enjoy this interview with God's comic Brad Stein with White Leroy Stein cooling down his GoPro. And, oh yeah, my friend, and now someone you can enjoy and know a little bit more about, Daniel Baldwin. Enjoy. Daniel Baldwin, how do you do, my friend?
Hey now, bro, how are you?
I
So-
am
what a
killing
great,
it.
what a great blessing. I just flew up to New York yesterday. Last week, I did Patrick Bet David and a couple other podcasts. And, as I'm sure you know, you get asked to do a lot, but for myself, I don't get to look forward to because of my admiration for the podcaster. I may like their work, right, but they're probably not somebody who, as a human being and as a man and as a Christian brother, that I admire them. And so I will say that you fall under that category, and I'm very, very proud to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wow. No one has ever said something like that to me. That was very humbling and very kind of you, Daniel. Thank you so much. What a nice thing. Well, you know what, folks? I'm going to jump right into this. We're going to take these emotions because actors learn to work with their emotions when they're happening. When you and I first met face to face, we were doing a film together, and I've done 25 films ish, and I'm sure you've done many, many more than me. But that's not a little. 25 is a handful. But by far, there was never a location that I was at that was more stunning than Seward, Alaska. I did one particular scene. I mean, obviously I wasn't involved in most of your scenes, so I don't know where all your locations were, but one of them was like on a boat dock overlooking the mountains that were just towering over the ocean, and then they would come straight down into the ocean. No shoreline. It was just straight, and all these beautifully painted, almost like Jaws looking fishing boat. It was crazy. It's like you couldn't have paid for this look, at a studio for what we had, and it was breathtaking to me. Tell me about your thoughts about Seward, Alaska, if you had anything specific that might come to mind.
Well, I had a few things that were specific to me about my experience. First of all, aesthetically, you realize the terminology used in real estate when they say a dramatic view. And so when you see, a water view, a beach view, an ocean view, all these different terms, and then you say, a pristine, whatever that, and then they go a dramatic view, which requires you to be, and you think of some town in Italy with red buildings all behind you, and you're overlooking the Mediterranean with red rock, and this was all of that. This was literally when God was kicking back with the paintbrush and just said, hey man, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make the Rocky Mountains look like they thrust right out of the ocean. I mean, it just
Yes.
was just unbelievably pristine, and glaciers, and it looked like a National Geographic
Yeah,
cover.
it was breathtaking. I mean, that's really
Yeah.
where that word belongs. You couldn't believe what you were seeing. And like I said, Daniel, you are a much more accomplished actor than me. And so I'm guessing you've probably had some overseas locations and whatnot. But I don't know how you would compete with that unless you were like at the, Mount Everest or you were in Swiss Alps. I don't know how you would see anything like that, really.
Well, I think when you just acknowledge the fact that that's probably why they went there. You know what I mean? That's why we shot there, because they wanted that just unbelievable. We look at it and go, gosh, where is that? You know what I mean? And Alaska is so vast. We have some places in Colorado or whatever that would look something like that. Canada has quite a few places that, Banff and stuff through. They're second from the West Coast province, which is Calgary is in Alberta.
Mhm.
But yeah, Alaska is just this giant location of just incredible wildlife and views like that. So, but Seward itself, it's funny you should say that, because two things jump out at me about Seward when it comes to oddity of a location. I think I'm on movie number 158, I think is how many films I've done in my career. 157, 158, something like that. I know I cracked the 150 mark like a couple of years ago. And in Seward, one of the things that jumped out at me was, remember we were staying at almost like a bed and breakfast kind of weird, house that had rooms that was really pretty. And I went there, but I had a bar restaurant downstairs. And my first night I came down, there was, this big kind of thick roughneck guy who looked like he worked out on an oil rig, and he had his plate down and, his head down in his plate. And I said, "Hey man, what's happening?" We're at the bar drinking a beer. And I said, "Where are you from?" And he goes, like it wasn't clear. Everything else in the conversation was pretty clear, except for where you're from. Well, as it grew to like day 3, day 4, I had my same meal right at that bar. Food was great. And I go up to my room, go to sleep, because we were working really long hours. And about the 4th time, I asked the bartender, I said, "Why is it every time I ask where someone's from, they say, well, I bounced around, I was here and there." He said, "Well, because a lot of people come up here to hide." And I said, "Really?" I said, what do you mean?" He goes, "Unless you're a felon of like, a rape or murder or whatever," he goes, "they're probably not coming up here to get you, because there's so much distance, even though this is an American territory. So your ID and everything still works up here. You can get banking up here. You can do it. But, if you're wanted for, some of the more minor stuff where it's accumulated, they're just not coming here. So they come up there and no one really says where they're from." Because that would be one of the first questions, somebody who was an agent that was trying to get you. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. Like that wouldn't have been what came to my mind, and I thought that was
Yes.
really interesting.
Well,
Um,
that is interesting. And, I have some stories that kind of jog my memory. One of the things that people don't realize about acting, at least if you're doing it right, is you have to not just read your lines and see who your character is, but they call it breaking down the script. You got to kind of figure out clues as to, well, who is this guy that I'm portraying? Because sometimes it doesn't really give you a backstory. You just know his name is Joe and he's a bartender, and he just acts odd and blah blah blah. And so the fun, the joy of the performance art of acting is you get to fill in those blanks. You get to create a human being that is all yours, even though somebody else wrote it, and give them all these flavors and these nuances and these textures that you created. And it's hard to explain what that feels like to people that have not acted or don't find it maybe interesting or maybe intimidating. I don't know. But to me, the joy of Greek is of taking a two-dimensional sort of abstract words and dimensionalize them into a human, and people watch it and feel that he's real, and you're not watching somebody act, you're watching a real human being we happen to be filming. That's the fun of acting. And I had in my particular role, and this is quite a few years ago, maybe 2010, 15 years ago, maybe. I don't know, maybe more. But I was with me and Ted McGinley played my brother, and we were these guys that would take people out on fishing trips or snowmobile tours. Anyways, that's what it said. We would take people out on snowmobile tours. So I get to Seward, and I don't know, I'm in craft services. I don't remember what I was doing, but I heard somebody say something. Yeah, because I took my snow machine over, and I go, "You what?" My snow machine. I said, "Oh, okay." And it's like, snow machine, what the heck? A few hours later, a few days, whatever it was, we hadn't started filming yet. Somebody said, because the snow machine, and I go, "Can I ask you a question?" Yeah.
hmm.
You guys call these snow machines here in Alaska? He goes, "Yeah, yeah." I said, "Because we call them snowmobiles." He goes, "Oh yeah, on the lower 48, they call them snowmobiles, but we call them snow machines." I immediately said, "Okay, well, that's what I'm gonna call." I said it once in the film. Matter of fact, I was thinking it was the scene that I did with you when you came up to the boat. But anyways, maybe not. But anyways, I think it was only once. But the point was, I did my work. Oh, they call it snow machines here. I'm going to call it that because got this beard and this long hair. I live here. I should know the nomenclature. And it's
Do
a
you know?
little
Do you know?
detail,
Do you
but it
know why?
mattered to me.
Do you know why? Okay, I'm going to tell you why. So
Okay.
now you can put a cap on the education of it. So for us in the lower 48, although there are regions of the country that we use them for work, they use them almost exclusively for work. It is the only way to get from point A to point B for well over half the year. So it's a machine
Yeah.
for which to make your living, or which to, a means to an end. For us, it's a snowmobile because it's for fun. A lot of people are using them to ride around and have fun. Oh, I'm going to go, but it's not a necessity.
Oh.
Up there, it's a necessity, which is why it has such a technical term to it, as opposed, because it is a machine.
Okay, so I got to ask you a question. Did you
Yeah.
just think of that, or did you kind of
No,
figure that out?
I just came up with that right now.
I want you to know that was brilliant because that's exactly true. A snowmobile indicates leisure, fun,
Yeah,
skiing,
yeah.
hiking, snowmobile, got my little thing. Machine is like car, truck. This
Hmm.
is a means to an end to get from one place to the other that I have to count on because it's the only way I can get around. So that was brilliant. But that's my point, Daniel. Actors don't let details slip by. Our job is to see everything and to bring it to the screen. And nobody knows. The person watching, they don't know what work you did or didn't do. They don't know what changed it. They don't know what take this is that you just watched my brilliant move. Yeah, because it was take 35. I finally figured it out. But you know what I mean? And so it's why I love talking to actors because I love creatives. I love creatives, which has always been so, I don't even know what the right word, I don't want to over dramatize. I don't want to say heartbreaking. That's a little too much. But because my career as a comic was known as a Christian and conservative, but really good at it, that's why the New Yorker did an article about me and called me God's comic because they didn't think you could be funny and be a Christian conservative, especially edgy. That really they felt wasn't an option for me. And so I love artists and to feel shut out of the community because I'm a conservative or a Christian. I don't know which one is more disdained in Hollywood, but I'm guessing conservative makes me sad because it's like, dude, I don't agree with your necessary point of view. I don't necessarily agree with your worldview, but I appreciate your work. I appreciate your craft. I appreciate you. Can we share this thing? And I feel like, at least in my opinion, the progressive is much less tolerant and engage and ingratiating those with a different philosophical, political, or ideological point of view. And it just makes me sad, Daniel, because I thought you were the guys that were the open-minded ones and let everybody kind of have their own world, and they're not. Now, am I overstating this? Because again, you've done three times as many films as me, and certainly have been in probably much bigger films with bigger names who are much more committed to their ideology. Have you found it to be ever a problem or a conflict in your filming because of your point of view? And I'm not even presuming you're a super conservative, but you certainly, I think, are more so perhaps than people would give you credit for with your last name.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's so much in this last riff that we went through, so I'm going to break it down, if it's okay, little by little.
Be my guest, brother. This is
Yeah.
about you.
Well, it's about us and it's about God, as what I would always hope.
Amen. We'll
Um,
get there. Fear not. We'll get there.
so first of all, in your work, which I follow, and I would admit that it was since filming, and I, follow, chime in, listen to, if some of your stuff pops up, blah, blah. There's who, what, where, when, and how. Think about those questions. Who, what, where, when, and how. Those are all statistical information. Who is the person? What is what they did? He's God's comic. He's a killer. He's a president. He's whatever. Where is the location? When is the date, the time? And how is the method that he used? He used a gun. He used this. Blah, blah. The big question, of course, will always be why. Why starts it all? The question that I left out of the series of the most famous questions when we're researching or trying to find answers in life.
Yeah.
Why? So when you look at the why of your life, the why of your comedy, the why of your style, the why of, you stayed true to that, Brad. You don't owe anybody an apology for that. Your why is clean. Your motive is clean.
Yeah.
So there are people, whether announced to you when I gave my opening introduction to you, and I will say again now, that have noticed that do appreciate it. Are they the ones that are pulling the strings that make, $500 million films? Well, probably not. But as a Christian pastor, as a father, as an actor who left Hollywood long ago, and when I left, I moved out, and I was kind of building things back up after a bad problem before I found God with drugs and alcohol. That I can look back at now and say, I would have found God if it wasn't for that problem.
Yeah, amen.
I never would have found him. I never would have known, my Savior. So, but no, there are people. There's the Kevin Sorbos of the world, and there are people where your name comes up, and so, even my brother Stephen, who, interestingly enough, of recent, has kind of gotten back into the fold a little bit with that town of Hollywood because he's got a show that he does, and there lies the temptation. When you say falling out of favor in that town, the problem is it's not all. Please, I'm not lumping everyone in Hollywood, but it seems to me, in my experience, and I have done very big primetime TV series for years, and movies that have won Oscars and blah blah blah, all of it. And I would say that there's a term that I came up with, which is convenient Christians. So there are Christians that it's convenient to be a Christian when it's convenient to be a Christian. So they'll quote the Bible, they'll say God bless you, they'll act in a certain way until the moment when somewhere on the scale, the tip of being non-Christian or going against that great book we call the Bible, or the rules that are clearly laid out by the Lord in that book, and they're willing to hedge or turn their back or be part of. I remember my wife. I'm married, and my wife said to me, "Well, I don't really like him very much," and I said, "Yes, that's true, honey. But if I only worked with people, that made movies that I liked, I'd probably never work again." And so how much are you willing to turn your back? And as somebody who has anointed their faith as the most important thing in their life, meaning you and I, that requires a lot of soul searching when you work. And we're not put in the same category as some of the people out there. And I mean, and I'm not even getting into, Brad, the level of debauchery that goes on out there that's now becoming very, very known in the press through Sean Combs and through Jeffrey Epstein. But I had heard the stories about that stuff. I had heard the stories. I had been asked to go to events. I had been asked to go to things where I thought, no, I know people. I know a couple of actresses, friends of mine that went to that and said that things got really bad. Bill Cosby, just people that, are part of a process and a machine that where God is, I'm going to put it this way, where God doesn't even seem to be in the equation. He doesn't even seem to be part of it. So I think you can, well, here's another, politically speaking, now we're going to get off just for a second, if I may. We'll talk about the election that just happened. Okay. And in the election that just happened, I know both candidates. I don't know much about her. I've met her a few times. I know what was presented to me, even by her. And I know the president-elect for a long time. Worked for him, worked with him, families worked with him. I know him and his family. And of course, I watched all this nonsense that was going around about saying his real estate was worth more money than it really was. And that's what they're going to hang him up. I thought, well, that happens every day in New York City. What are you talking about? I mean, people try to get the most they can for their property. Is Donald Trump perfect? No. No, of course not. He's a fallible sinner and a human being. Does he follow the Lord? You betcha he does. And he's not afraid to say that he does. So there's part right there, just that statement alone, that I said, here's a guy that risks. Michael Jordan said, Michael, why don't you use your power, your vast political power, to do something about, the election or about this or things you believe in? He said, Republicans buy shoes too. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Republicans buy sneakers too. So for the sake of money, he was going to, Trump didn't do that. Trump didn't do that. He was willing to turn off a lot of people. Listen, there's a lot of people of the Jewish faith. There's a lot of people that are Muslim. There's a lot of people who immediately, as soon as you identified yourself as a Christian, said, he's not one of us.
Yeah.
He didn't care. He didn't care about that. That means something to me with where
Yeah.
this country is going right now. That meant something to me. So you know what? After all the years of Alec being the head of the Creative Coalition, Billy being the head of the Creative Coalition, mine being a certified, stamped Democrat, I said, no more. No more am I doing this. This movement has gone off the rails of what I thought it was about. This is very, very different, and our country is at risk. We can have people, Brad, go into a classroom in a grade school, kindergarten through 6, openly dressing, cross-dressing as another sex, reading books to our children, but we can't salute the flag and say the Pledge of Allegiance, and we can't talk about God in that same classroom. what the heck is going on in this
Right,
world right now?
right.
It's
Well, it's
crazy.
because
So
it's
no,
spiritual.
so
Because
no,
it's a
so no.
spiritual.
That's right. And
Yeah.
you're making a stand. So at the end of the day, I said over the abortion issue, I said, listen, you're not hearing me. You're just like the president. You're not hearing me. I did not say you should not have a right to decide what happens over your body. I never said that. And I don't believe the president said that. He said, I'm not going to have it be a national law. I'm not going to tell you that the nation will say
Right.
every 50 states will fall under this federal law. I'm saying that the state you live in will have the power to decide. And if you don't like that, you can probably just drive over to another state. Well, how does that, again, time out? That's it. That's the statement.
Yeah.
I will tell you the same thing. One day, in what I believe, I am going to go to the gates of heaven, and they're going to stand there and they're going to say, and I hope you started out great as a child, and you did, and then you had a rough road there for a little while. You made some decisions that weren't very healthy. You made some decisions that weren't very godly. But you know what? That last X amount of years, which now has been decades, and hopefully decades more, you did a really good job of coming back. You really served the Lord. You spread the word. You helped people. You put that message out there, and you were a symbol of when I shined my light on you, you were supposed to reflect it out, and you did that. Congratulations. We're going to have you come into the club. And guess what? I believe that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a person, again, who does not ask for forgiveness, who has broken any of those rules or lived a life that you never ask God to forgive you before you go, I don't know you're going to get in. I don't. And so I'm not going to judge you. So if you decide that you're pregnant for whatever reason, it's inconvenient, I was raped, I was this, or whatever the thing, you will face the man. One day you're going to face him. And one day that decision will be made. I pray for you. I pray for your soul. I pray for your salvation. But it's not up to me. People know that about us, Brad, and it intimidates the hell out of them because guess what? It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's much harder to be me and much harder to be you than it is to be the woman that takes that temptation because
Yeah, for
there's
sure.
temptation every day. I don't
Yeah.
take it. I
Well,
don't take
first
it.
off, there's so much. Daniel, when I first met you, I don't know that I knew much about your background, but I'm going to say this, and this is maybe um, an important analysis that people watching this from all over can deal with. And it is this. I'm going to say this now that I kind of think it through. I hadn't really thought about that much, but it's like it's recrystallizing. So God's using this to try to find some healing elements for people who are watching us. I think I prejudged you. I think I kind of thought, well, okay, he's one of them Baldwin guys. And by the way, had no intention of even bringing up your brothers. I said, this dude's got to get so sick of talking about his brothers. It's like, they got their own life. Go bring them on the podcast. Can I just? But it's kind of hard to not because they have a cultural imprint that kind of you can't avoid, and you're attached to them and you look like them. So it's kind of like you're kind of stuck. It's kind of like being born into royalty, you can't escape it. And so you might try to create your own path or um, find another avenue that can give you your own identity, but you can't. You're a Baldwin. And it's significant to a certain degree in that business of acting. All four of you ended up in acting professionally. Yeah, that's ridiculous. It's hard enough for one human being to make a living, not act, not get a gig. A lot of people can do that. It's hard, but you can. Not to make a living at it. That is the hard part. To make an actual, this is what I do for a living acting, very rare. You did it, and I think kind of all your brothers did. That's
For sure.
four guys in the same. That's like four brothers making it to the major leagues. It's
Well,
just
that's the oddity of it. I've always identified. I figured it out years ago. It's not 1 in 2,500 actors makes a living acting without having to subsidize their income doing something else. But the rarity and the interesting thing about the Baldwin family is we're not Sheens, we're not Carradines, we're not Barrymores. There was no one in the business before us. There wasn't an uncle or a father or a sibling or something that got us in the
yeah.
business and said, okay, everyone else is coming. So you understand that when you see Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen about their dad's Martin Sheen, boom,
Yeah.
So I think that's what really makes it strange is that four
Yes.
boys that were relatively unknown
Well, and not
may have,
and well, and beyond that, Daniel, because not only did you guys have to all have have the chops, but you had to be interested in it. How many people are interested in acting? It's kind of that's not a typical. Most guys that are in acting, I think, a lot of their siblings get off and become an architect, or I'm a,
Right.
they're just
Yeah.
it's a subculture. Not everybody wants to act, and not everybody
Sure.
can. So it just made it very unique in that regard. And so and I'm going to probably say that I probably assumed or broad brushed you as from what I saw from some of the other folks. Not so much Stephen. I think he, for a long time, kind of associated with faith and was a man of faith and at least identified as a Christian. I think he is still.
Sure.
Like you said, I've
Yeah.
seen some odd things from him recently, some very odd posts that I'm trying to wrap my mind around.
Me too.
Yeah, but I mean, it's weird. It's like, it's weird stuff that it's like, this is surreal kind of crazy. But you know what? He's a human being. And if he's a Christ follower, I think he is. God will reel him in if he needs to. But anyways, I'm not here to judge his thing. What I am here to say is, I apologize to have thought less of you before I got to know you. And the reason I know this is true, Daniel, is because in some conversation, and I cannot give you the exact details, so I'm just going to kind of, I don't know, I'm going to just give you a thumbnail recreation. We were in many conversations because you're on set, you got time, you got downtime, whatever. And something happened with Faith, and I think I was kind of like trying to defer, like not wanting to push that on to you or something from my. And you're like, no, no, hey man, look, it kind of like you wanted me to know I'm one of you. And I remember thinking, what? You're not one of. I mean, I'd never heard that indicated anywhere in your life or whatever, but it was important for you to let me know I'm a believer.
And the reason why, see, so I've always said, and here where part of my Christianity, maybe I'm not. Well, I think it's right for whoever it's right for. But in conversations I've had before, when I differentiate, because you're right, we get lumped into one as this culture, pop culture, the Baldwins kind of thing from the
But
90s.
Alec, let's face it, Alec is such an extreme that it's really hard for you to ever escape that
Well,
shadow. It just
well,
is.
well. So what's happened is there's been certain rules. I usually have never spoken for any of them. I never
Yeah.
will say, well, my brother. Well, so if you have a question about my brother, it has to be about what I think or about what I feel. Which again, when I, infamously back in the '90s got in trouble and was arrested on drug charges, it was true. Most of it. There were situations about it that were reported that happened at a hotel, which is complete nonsense. That didn't happen. But again, the gist of it was true. I had a problem. I needed to address it. Recently, so Alec was forced, kind of in a way, to be in front of camera saying he's okay, he's this, we're working on that. He wants to get help, but he was thrust into a position being, let's face it, at no time do you ever hear me going, well, I'm one of the Baldwins. I'm as big as my brother Alec is a big, big movie star. I'm a working actor that's a member of a family that's pretty famous. I've had situations in my career, primetime TV shows that have run for years, that have put me in the limelight, deservedly so for my work. But it's much more amplified because of being one of the four, and Alec for sure being the biggest star. I'm not delusional about my career. But with that said, when he does something that's like if he had done some of the things that I did, oh my God, it would have been on the cover of every magazine, every newspaper, And so, of course, in his last couple of years, he's had a rough go of it, because situations due to this accident on his movie set, and it has just thrust us with. I mean, I can't even tell you the number of emails and social media, because this is so much bigger now than it was when I ever did anything that would have got me in the news. And the persecution that I've had to withstand, as a result of this situation for him. So it's been really,
For
really
you,
hard.
the persecution towards you?
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, you blankety blank, but thousands, by the tens of thousands, in the last couple of years. Terrible emails and criticisms. And listen, it's really hurtful to read it, even if it's not about me, about my brother, who I love. And that, we're not the closest, as close as we've been in a long time, but he's still my brother, and so I look at what he's gone through in the press lately, and I look at, some of the things that have come out of the mouths. So Billy and I are very similar, not politically, but we're similar in our love for each other. And, although we've had some battles over this last election and my jumping over to the Republican side, I don't think anything would ever get in between my relationship with my brother Billy. Stephen, on the other hand, there's something that you brought up in the beginning of this, and that was that it kind of had to turn your back on Hollywood, or at least Hollywood has turned their back on you as a result of what you stand for. And I'm experiencing that politically. I mean, listen, I came right out over a year ago on my podcast, and I said, do you people even know the rules? Do you even know what the law is? The law is that you think Biden is going to run against Donald Trump? I said, Joe Biden's not going to run against Donald Trump. Joe Biden's going to get the political nomination. He's going to step out for some brain aneurysm or some nonsense they're going to claim. And then they're going to step somebody. And I said, and if they want to beat Trump, there's only one person that can do it, and that would be Michelle Obama. I said, if they got Michelle Obama to put him back in the White House, I said, she's popular enough that I think people would probably vote for her. It would be a really close race. What did they do? They got a different African-American woman instead, and they picked the wrong horse, and they lost. And I went on to say, in the months preceding, he's going to win every single one of those battleground states. And he did. I got FBI blocklisted. The FBI took my show down from several social media sites, off of YouTube. Now, they're claiming that they didn't play a role. YouTube decided to. But again, so I'm experiencing firsthand these things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I realize that I don't even get called to go in on things that, pilot season comes up. I got 4 or 5 pilots. Now I'm no longer the young, dashing, detective. I'm the ship commander. All right, you boys, I want him in a body bag at 0800. I mean, I'm that guy now. I'm 64, but I'm not even being seen. I'm not even being asked for any of it anymore. So, and I do believe it's part of my political stance. It is part of my belief system. But listen, there is no last laugh in these situations. I'm not going to laugh at anyone, but I'm going to tell you something. In the next year, they're going to shake that town up really, really badly. There's going to be people that come out that are iconically big, that they have videotapes of. I mean, this stuff that went on at Epstein's and at Sean Combs' homes, and in these rages or whatever.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but I mean, since we're going this direction, it's so volatile. So you're pretty much, from what you know, this is legit. This is like some serious sick stuff that is real, is documented, and somebody is going to pay a horrible price, and should, if this is legit, for what they've done. And I'm talking about major, well-known figures. Is that what you think is coming?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I said this on Patrick Bet-David's show just last week, and I'm getting a lot of Cuomo contacted me when I talk about this, and I said, from what I understand, I'm not in the room that I can verify, but from what I understand, there are representatives that have the films that are reaching directly out to the representatives of the stars' names that are involved, and they're creating a bidding war now. That they are going to, if you want to buy back the film that you're in, you can pay for it. That's what I heard. So I don't know that to be a fact, but it makes a lot of sense.
But that would be if they sent some sort of legal task force to figure this out or to press charges. That would be evidence that if you are found, got rid of, that dude's going down for tampering with evidence and or abetting and assisting. I mean, not like I'm a lawyer, but I'm just saying, if they're doing that kind of openly, either they're just kind of foolish, not realizing that Trump is legitimately trying to come after all you, and it's your turn to face the consequences, or everything is so corrupt, Daniel, that nobody's going to ever get indicted. Because we've seen that in the last few years as well. One group gets indicted.
Look at the precedents that they just set. This guy is about to leave office. He swears and swears and swears he's not going to pardon his son. And by the way, if I'm president of the United States, for what Hunter Biden was accused of, and I had the power to swipe a pen and make him walk away from that, I probably would have saved my kid. I probably would have. I'm being honest. I don't know that I would have said all along, I'm not. I think they're less, because he wasn't accused of, some crime against children or what. He was accused of some stuff that he probably did, and the father exonerated him. But what precedence did that set? What's the precedence being set by the blanket coverage he's supposedly going to give a bunch of his, the Liz Cheneys, the people who are being accused of tampering with elections and doing all kinds of. So if we're going to do that, then you've set the precedence that you can't say anything to Trump while he sends his boys out to do it at any cost the way he wants it get done, that he's going to exonerate all them and use his powers. So, it's a terrible system. But back to what we were talking about the videotapes. I mean, remember, these are masters at wording things. So they're going to say things like, we're going, and I'm going to make this up. So let's make sure let's say it was Oprah. Let's say it was some iconic person. And there's videotapes of her. Now, if there's videotapes of her in sexual activity with multiple men, other women, whatever it is, that's not the thing. It's going to hurt her reputation. It's going to hurt her. But if she's doing something illegal in it, if the children are in it, if the this or now, if you start doing stuff like that, like Epstein's Island supposedly is about, if you start bringing in where you can prove that that person was 13 years old, you're going to prison.
Yeah.
And believe me, we'll put up with a lot in this country, but that's one of the ones we're not going to
kids. Not kids.
On either side.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, now imagine the phone rings. Hello, this is, Ira Shablomowitz. I represent this guy. And they say, we have videotape evidence on a documentary that we're going to do about your client. And this is not very flattering videotape evidence. But should you decide that you want to buy the rights to the film, that's how they're going to word it, or something like that. And so what's that cost? What's the cost if you did something illegal on that tape that you'd be willing to pay? I think that number's a big number.
Yeah, well, clearly, and of course, those folks can afford it. I'm gonna try something here for a second, Daniel, because the good news is we pre-record. So if we decide it's not the best direction, we can always get rid of it.
So,
well, I'm just saying, I want to be very, you'll see why in a second, be very sensitive to your to our conversation and in our friendship,
sure.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
But two things.
Yeah.
One is from that day in Seward where you were, and just forgive me because I don't mean any really disparaging, but almost desperate to make me know I'm a Christian. I want you to know that. So, I mean, that was beautiful because it was important to you that for whatever reason, I mean, I don't know why maybe you've did a little research on who you were about to act with, and maybe stumbled upon my stuff and said, "Oh, this guy's cool, and he's one of us." I don't want him to think less of me or what. I don't know. I don't care, frankly. I'm nobody, but nevertheless, it was important to you. And I've had a little engagement with Stephen over the years. Because here he was one of the Baldwin brothers and unapologetically a Christian. So I'm like, oh, cool. Maybe we can do some work together. We're brothers in Christ. We're both artists. Let's see. And in my little interaction, and again, I hope to God, I'm just trying to explore. I feel like he Hollywooded me a little bit. And it just bothered me because I was like, come on, man. We're believers. We don't play that. We're nobodies. We're skilled. We're
You feel
good.
like I did or Stephen did?
Stephen.
Ah.
Stephen, that's my point, is if somebody was going to Hollywood me.
Well, okay, so and here's my, again, I if I can't comment on something, I would tell you, but I can tell you my opinion. And I've said all along, you can't say one thing and do another. You can't say one thing and do another. So my wife is a devout Christian. She's an attorney, real believer, and much younger than me, but she anchors me in reality of what really matters. Sometimes she can just look at me and I know it's God, in her looking at me. She'll look and she'll go, just a little, and I'll go, okay. And then I find myself backing down on the conversation with a person that I'm getting very, loud or boisterous with, or whatever. And the look is, where is God in that for you right now? That's what the look means. Where is God in that? Do you sound godly? Are you speaking in a way in front of our child that you would want our child to hear? It doesn't matter. It's just this turn of the eyebrow kind of thing she does. And it's a beautiful thing because it's one of the reasons why God put us together, for sure, is that I needed that person.
How long have you been married?
3 years now. Yeah. So, but she brings that in me, right? With Stephen, I know Stephen. He's my brother. I know him very well. And there's been a real separation for us in our involvement with each other, because I think when someone knows what you're doing and someone knows, what you're about, and Stephen will use the Bible and tell us why I'm not. By now he already would have had the Bible open to say why you're not really, really doing it the right way, Brad. And Daniel, you're really not doing. I don't do that. I don't tell anyone that I know the way or whatever. If you want to know about my experience, strength, and hope, you want to know my path to the Lord, I'm happy, and we can quote scripture, and we can talk about as men, our interpretation of what those words mean, and share ideas and so on. And hopefully, you get to bring something to me that broadens my horizon. You know what I mean? But I don't look at anyone as wrong. And there are some people where, I hate to say as a human being, I go, well, that's outright wrong. I say it to myself, but I won't say it to them.
Yeah.
With Stephen is a product of that environment a little bit too. Like especially lately, look at Trump. Look at Trump as a perfect example. Where I say, what happened to you? And I went on Patrick Bet-David because Stephen had been on, and they asked me if I wanted to rebuke anything he said. I said, yeah, I do. I don't remember it that way at all. And I got on there, and just things that he claimed, about. And I said, hang on a second. Stephen and I stood up to Alec. Stephen and I stood up to Billy. Stephen and I were the two guys that were on the Republican side early on with Trump. And now Stephen said, well, I've decided to remain Switzerland now. He's neutral. And I said, because there's some falling out that you had with Trump, or because, well, no. What it boils down to is Stephen has decided that he's going back to Hollywood to do his podcast. He wants to get back into films and working more to support him and his wife and so on. Well, God bless him. But that means that you turn your back on the guy that you were backing, that you believes in God. And what happened to all that? Where does that go? And I see the direction that some of the people that I know that backed her, I wouldn't throw a glass of water on them if they were on fire. You know what I mean? And I don't obviously mean that literally, but like there's this awful people. So I think he's caught in this grandstanding in public kind of thing, which might be partially what he did with you. Remember something, when I talked to you about God, I kind of recall the moment a little bit too, because I don't think I was hinting at you. I was telling you as a Christian.
Yeah.
And I was telling you as a Christian because there aren't a lot of us out there that wear it like that.
Amen. Exactly.
So,
No. And it took me by surprise, right? I mean, only because I didn't know. The only one that I knew, that did. Oh, you get no. There you go.
yeah,
The only one that I knew that had identified as a Christian was Stephen. So, and I don't know him well. And again, I'm trying to have I'm trying to have an interesting, I hope, conversation about without demeaning. I'm not trying to disparage the guy. I don't know him really well, but I knew him, and we met. Maybe it was at NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters, and maybe it had to do with maybe a project that we might do together. But here's the thing that's weird, Daniel. Maybe not. I've always been a believer. I've always been a Christian, even when I went into the comedy clubs and did the nightclubs with the drinking and the all the things that are part of that world. I was always a believer when I was in started performing and acting with people that for the most part are not Christians and are more hedonistic, right? And so I had this odd naive perspective that a believer in Christ doesn't see himself as his image or his press, but humbles himself. Hey, I'm a wretch, man. Thank you, Jesus. You saved me because I didn't deserve it. And I just presume there is no celebrities amongst the brethren. Now, some of us are more well known, and I've even said to people, I don't want to be famous, I want to be popular. And what I mean by that is if I'm famous, it comes along with a lot of ego, a lot of pride, a lot of sense of you were given a higher position in the human experience that you don't deserve. To me, popular just meant people like what I do so I can work. I just want them to like what I do so I have a chance to work. So that is more like I'm aware of you, I like what you do, I'll pay to see it. That's popular. But famous adds this idle oddness to it that just to me is not what I want to do. And I felt like he was grappling. This is what I was projecting into this moment because I'm very sensitive to this because I was a believer before I was a comic, before I was a actor, right? I felt like a guy that was grappling with, I'm now a big fish in a small pond because I was in Usual Suspects and all these other things. And now suddenly I'm doing a Christian thing and I don't want y'all to forget who I am. That's what I was getting. And I'm like, hey, man, you don't need that. I mean, you're a great actor. But come on, man. So, anyways, my point was, I would have expected that more from you, I'm guessing,
Mm,
than
mm.
him. But you have been, since I've known you and the few times we've interacted, have been very clear about the way you see your faith and that it's important. And I remember us having another conversation in maybe in a dressing room or something. And again, if I don't, so, but it had to do with your brother. Uh, and all it was, Daniel, was you were upset the way he treated your mother. That's
Mm,
all I remember. There was
mm.
something, and it was, of course, Alec, who's famous, famous. And you were like, and your thing was not like, oh, why isn't he getting me gigs with in his movies or doing this or doing, it wasn't that. It was you going back to home and saying, in the end, we're a bunch of brothers that grew up together, roughhousing and playing sports and getting in fights and drinking and carousing. And we had parents we loved and took care of us. And you ain't holding your weight in that. And I just remember feeling like, man, this guy in a way could be jeopardizing. I mean, he's talking out of school to some actor he doesn't know. And I goes, hey, I hear that Alec wasn't being nice to his mom. But you didn't care because you cared about what was happening more than trying to save somebody's reputation. And you weren't mean about the guy. You weren't
Yeah,
insulting him.
I don't remember what that
But
is.
it had something to do with you felt like he didn't treat your mother right or didn't visit her during Christmas or maybe your father died. All I remember is I found it interesting that you were willing
Mm,
to share kind of a personal, private
mm.
family issue.
Yeah, maybe we were going through something, he and I, at that time. But I will say this: there was a something that has changed dramatically in my life when it comes to the relationship with all of my brothers. Is for a long time, no matter what, the word was, Billy and I would have these conversations, especially because Billy is who I'm closest to of the boys. Um, and we would, if something came up about Stephen or something came up about Alec or whatever it was, we would kind of avoid making a comment about it. And also the illusion would always be that, we're really tight, we're really close, we're really this, we're really that, like we're this pack, as the public likes to see us as. And in the last, 5, 7 years or so, I've been like, yeah, I'm not really covering for anybody anymore. I'm not, and that doesn't mean I'm going to go out of my way, nor am I going to talk about, you know, Billy and his marriage or Alec and his marriage or Stephen and his marriage or political affiliations. But when they ask me things, which they ask, are you guys close to, not really, no, not that close with Alec anymore. Don't really speak to him much. There
But
went
isn't that
through,
sad?
Brad, it's awful. I mean,
It's your
because
brother.
he's my brother,
That's what
and
I'm
so,
saying. He's not a celebrity. He
right.
will never be a movie star to you. You are my brother. The end.
No, he's
That's what.
Xander. He's Xander, Xander. He's not Alec. He's Xander. I don't know who
Yeah.
Alec is. Alec's
Okay.
some guy that's on the screen. Xander Baldwin is my brother. When my mom passed away a couple years back, there was a real step back from him, which, you got to allow people their space. You got to allow people what they want. There's two people in every relationship, and he made it really well known to me. He said, I'm kind of reevaluating my position with people in the family and blah, blah. And we played words with friends every day. We would chat, a little bit, check in with each other. My kids who don't have, 16 and 15-year-old daughters, text him, no response, it's sad. It's really sad. But for whatever he was going through, or whatever he is going through, or whatever his perception of me is, or what he thinks I've done or something, that's on him, So I continue honestly to pray for him. I do. I pray for him. I want him to be happy. He's
He
got,
doesn't seem happy. He doesn't seem like a man at peace. He seems he feels like a man who's gained the whole world and lost his soul.
yeah, I don't know. I don't, I wish I knew enough because I would try to target things that I could help. But I remember saying this, and I can sum it all up in this. I remember when the situation happened to him on set, this terrible accident. And I remember, because Billy, his wife is China Phillips. Do you know China?
Yeah.
Okay, so China knows the Lord. China knows the Lord. She's one of us. Billy has a God in his life and everything. I don't believe he's a born again Christian that I know of, and certainly does not wear it as his wife does. Stephen and I definitely are both born again Christians, and the girls I think in my family, Beth and Jane, are Catholic, and Alec, of course, is a Catholic, practicing Catholic. Which I was an altar boy. I went through all that stuff for a long, long time, which was part of my journey to get to where I am today. But I remember after it happened, and there was, obviously, are we flying to New Mexico? How can we support him? This awful thing happens to your brother and this woman, of course, and her child and husband and blah, blah, blah. So it was probably a couple of weeks after, and I was, we're assessing behind his back, is he okay? I mean, these are the kinds of things where, can lead to terrible personal tragedy for yourself. And I was really concerned for him because I know how he took this, and would try to, even though it was not his responsibility physically, what was going on in his head and emotionally.
Yeah.
And so I remember specifically saying to my brother Billy, if there isn't anything in this man's life that will bring him to the Lord, it will be this situation. I mean, this will be the humbling experience that brings him to God, that, has him hit his knees and just say, okay, take me, And for a while, there was behavioral things that went on for my brother that I thought, amen, this is what's coming now. And then little by little, he kind of, it's the epitome of thy will be done. And then he started taking the will on a little more. And ultimately, he's who he is again, and so, and I love that person. But I think, let me give you this last piece, and then I want to not talk about him anymore. I remember sitting with him one day. I was doing, intervention number 300 or whatever, and I've done 500 interventions where either on the phone or Zoom or, before COVID, hundreds in people's homes. And I do it a little differently than the classic TV series that you see, where they have the circle and they put the subject in the middle with each family member reading it off a paper. I don't let them read it off a paper. I think it disconnects them. So I come the day before and I interview them and take notes. And then I have them sit with, usually the mother's the last one because she's the one that just breaks you down. And I say, little Tommy sits down in the middle and I say, Tommy, listen, we're about to talk about things that you've done, not who you are. We love you. Everyone in this room loves you. And then we go and as it starts stammering on, and I'll turn around and I'll say to the wife, and tell them about the time you left the kids, that time. And I have notes that redirect them, but it allows them to look them right in the eye, this person, and tell them, and when you left, Frank in the, at the park that time and you were so drunk or whatever. And it's really effective way when they make eye contact. And I remember saying to Alec, I said, at the end of the day, whose career do you think is going to have the most effect on the world? And he went, well, and I didn't ask who's the biggest star. I didn't ask who made the most money. I said, do you really believe that because you made Hunt for Red October, or because you made this movie or that movie, or Glengarry Glen Ross with all the great, verbiage in that film and that speech is still, notoriously one of the greatest monologues ever done in film? I mean, granted, I bow. Your career has been far greater. But who's going to have the bigger effect? I said, because I want you to look at the trickle-down effect of going into the living room and affecting 10 family members and 4 children and the people that they work with, and bringing that person to get sober and bringing them to God, and having the people in their congregation in their town and the people that he coaches on the baseball team. I said, and the number of people that they touch. I said, in a way, you probably are going to hit bigger numbers than I am, but will you have that significant an effect on their life? And the reason why I was bringing it up was not trying to challenge him as to who was bigger or something. I wanted to know what it would take to get him to come help me. I wanted to know what it would take to get him to do God's work and not acting work, and not about money and not about fame and not about, I wanted to know what, and I directed recently, which I think we're going to talk about, a faith-based film, and broke into the faith-based market and sent a message out there about the power of prayer. Now, what would that have been like? And I offered him a role in it and he declined. And what would that have been like if I had all 4 of us, because I had Billy and Stephen and I acted it and directed it. But again, what's that message look like? What does that power? That's power. When you were talking before about the acting career and everything, it's power. It's power. Now, as long as you're not hung up and you're humble enough to realize that God gave you that power and that you need to use it responsibly to put the light back on God. When you talked about being a star and everything, it's your shine. It's your shine. You want to be able to have the maximum amount of shine that you can because the shine attracts.
Yeah.
So when you're shiny, you attract people, and then they see the message and they see the person, and they see what it is, and it's God. And so that's why I say I reflect that light that is put on me from God, God's light.
Mm.
So I want the light. That's what I
Yeah.
want.
Well, but God bless you, man, because, working with addicts and of course you're the most qualified. I mean, clearly somebody who's lived that world, walked that path, you will have an insight, to what they're grappling with. Because if you've never been addicted to something, you just can't understand what it's like. You don't, because it seems obvious. If I'm looking at you and you're freaking on meth or whatever you call it, and you're like strung out and your family's dissolved and you're got sores all over your face, you would think the guy would go, yeah, I want out of this.
I
They
know.
don't. The reason sin works is because it feels good. It feels good to have sex with lots of women. It feels good to have heroin, I guess. I've never had it feels good, or it wouldn't be an addiction. It wouldn't be a
Yeah.
problem. It
Mhm.
feels good. It ends in tragedy. It never completes what it proclaims it's going to give you, which is happiness and contentment. It never completes its mission properly. It's always a hangover. It's always guilt afterwards. It's always degradation and loss of dignity. It's always evil because it's satanic. It's a false promise, but it works for a second. And that's what draws you. And it also means somebody is missing something because we are designed to serve God, whether you like it or not. And if you abandon God, G.K. Chesterton, you probably have read of him, Catholic guy, but he said a statement that was so important. He said, if you stop believing in God, you don't believe in nothing, you believe in anything. And
Mm.
that is so true because you don't stop believing in God and then suddenly live your life untethered to something driving you. You're going to replace God with an idol. You're going to worship something else. You can't not. You're designed to worship God. You will replace him with something else if you get rid of him. And when I think of somebody like your brother, I'm not going to re-bring him up, but it's important because when I see people like him or anybody from the progressive left, like with the Trump derangement syndrome, whatever, what we talk about, who are clearly not seeing the reality of what's going on Earth. Like you said, if you have a drag queen reading children's stories and having sexual explicit books for children and not go, what is wrong with you?
Right.
Get that sick crap out of here. It's spiritual, it's demonic, but you know what else is, Daniel? It's a religion. It's
Mm.
a religion. That's why they take it so personally. If you vote for Donald Trump, they believe you literally voted for a devil. That's how they see it. It's what they've replaced the Christian truth with, which is what the West was founded on. It's what they've replaced it with. They had to find something that gave them a sense of value, of virtue. That's why they call it virtue signaling. They have none. So they replace it with this counterfeit fraud that makes them feel like they're somebody. So when I think of guys like perhaps your brother or anybody in that regard, they're probably people who mean well, who are seeking truth, just have chosen the wrong side. I mean, what do you think when you see people who are so blinded to their perspective? How do we talk to them, Daniel? You deal with addicts who are going, I'm not listening to you. I'm good. I like this. I'm
Right.
fine. How do you break through this deception, this mist that they have self-imposed? What, obviously, yes, you pray. Obviously, there's a spiritual dimension. But are there techniques? Are there ways to reach these people when they have gotten so lost?
Well, wow, it's such a complex question. I will say that when you have a high-powered light, when you have a flashlight that's really a like strong one, and you beam it on certain things, it's brought into like something you can see much more clearly. And I think that it takes using that powerful light. When people say, like we talked earlier about abortion, and I would listen to people, commenting in my social media on X or Instagram, whatever, and I say, and I pick a comment, And I'm cherry picking the ones I want to obviously answer. And I'd say, can you take me through that again? So please explain to me how, if Trump moves the abortion issue to a state decision, how that in any way will change your rights federally to have an abortion. And then you go, well, yeah, but you need to, no. Forget Roe v. Wade, forget about all this stuff. It has nothing to do. You're saying and you're telling people, and the most important issue for women in this election was that he was going to take your right away to have an abortion, which is clearly not what he has said he's going to do. But the spin on it now takes that light. The spin on it from the Democrats is to make you believe when, again, read what she said, read what he said, read what I am far more concerned, light now back on Tim Walz and Minnesota, with someone who is saying, I am going to give a 13-year-old boy the right to decide whether he should have his genitals removed against his parents' wishes.
Yeah.
And choose what sex he's going to be at 13. Now, again, that same 13-year-old, if he was touched by someone, the person that touched him would be incarcerated for rape. And furthermore, I have said this always. And I've said this, and no one ever has a good answer. I don't know if you've ever been posed this question, but I promise you're going to put it in your gun and carry it for the rest of your life. If I kill this 26-year-old woman at the roadside, and you find her body with my DNA and eyewitnesses and my phone and slam dunk case, I'm going to be prosecuted to the extent of the law in that state. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. If that woman just got back from a sonogram and was found to be pregnant, and she was just 2 months pregnant, 2 months pregnant, and I shot her and killed her, and the baby died, would I not be charged with multiple homicides in that state?
Yep.
So you are telling me that I've killed 2 people at 2 months, at whatever the level is that she was determined pregnant. It's multiple homicides in that case, but it's not murder to kill a baby and have an abortion.
Yep.
Please, someone, please.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not taking away your right to choose. Explain that to me. Explain why it's a homicide and I'm going to do life in prison for the rest of my life if I kill this person and she's pregnant, but it's not a homicide 6 months into it when the baby can feel things and you shred it to pieces with the apparatus that you use to have an abortion, and that's not a homicide. I'm sorry, Brad. I don't understand that.
You don't, because it's a spiritual blinding of people because they want their convenience.
Because you can justify it in your heart.
Of course.
As the person that does it.
You have to.
I can't justify it in mine.
No, they would have to. And here's what is beyond that, though, Dan. Here's what takes it to a deeper spiritual level. They're mothers. They're women. They have a unique, God-given, not only capacity to have a child, make a child, birth a child, but the hormones that run through that connect that child physically, spiritually, to watch over it, to protect it, to defend it. I'm a mom. I'm the feather. I mean, the Bible speaks when it speaks about the differences in God's character of male and female, because he's both, because he made them male and female in his image. Obviously, he has elements of both. And so when it speaks about God in that regard, like in Psalms 91, I take refuge under your wings and, like a mother hen. So there's something about moms that are connected to their children that is unlike anything a man can ever do. Certainly we can be connected to them and will die for them. But a woman birthed it. It's there. So for them, the gymnastics they have to go through to justify and alleviate their guilt has to be enormous. And the truth is they don't. Most women that get abortions regret and always remember, what have I done? What have I done? It's like you said with the kid and the gender thing. By the time you realize I have mutilated myself and I'm a Frankenstein monster, literally, if you've ever seen photos of what they do, especially to the girls, to give them a penis and try to make them look, it's Mengele stuff. It's monsters. It's unfathomable that this is allowed to happen in a civil society.
Mm.
And so, they have to walk away from their inherent design, spiritually and physically, to allow this to take place because they were taught you want to be equal with men, and men for thousands of years have gotten you pregnant and walked away. Well, it's our turn. It's our turn. I want to have sex too every time I turn around. And if I get pregnant, I get to make it vanish.
Mm.
And that was an incredibly part, I think, Daniel, of the judgment that God had to have brought on this country. The transgender stuff came out of here. Everything
It,
that's
it, 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 it it makes me, Brad, I tell you, honestly, we're going through it right now because I have, two girls in the house, 16 and 15. One is at the halfway point of her junior year, so she has another half year, and then her senior year. And the other is a freshman halfway through the freshman year. And I've said to my freshman daughter, and now I have an 18-month, I'm an old man with a baby. So, and I said to my wife, you know, when I look at growing up on Long Island, and I look at the influence of being 45 miles outside of New York City and the ocean, and I mean, it was just such a brilliant place to grow up. The advantages, many, and access of things that I had, even without having to try. But I look at where it is now, and I really wonder if I'll even be in the United States by the time my son is 6, 7, or I'll probably because I've lived abroad before. I lived in Canada, I lived in Europe in a few locations, and it just isn't like this there. Not that it doesn't exist, but it's not like it is here. The amount of things that and so what we were talking about, I want to stay on the subject, was school. And so I said, yeah, I really can see now why you would homeschool your kid. I can. I look at Tim Tebow, devout Christian. Did you know Tim didn't go to school?
yeah, yeah, he's
Tim's mom homeschooled him and then sent him because he was entitled to play on the athletic teams, even though he played football at the school that he was living in the area to go to. And I can really, really see why. I see in my teenage girls who are good girls, but the stuff they pick up, the stuff that is just around them, unless I'm going to make it so he just doesn't have a phone, and it's so hard with the influence of everyone else that I started thinking maybe I'll go back to Italy. Maybe I'll go, to Switzerland or someplace a little more
Where do you
rural.
live now? What state are you in?
I'm in Georgia. I'm in Atlanta.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. A lot of films go on here.
we're not far. I live in Nashville. We're only 3.5 hours away, man. I go to Georgia all the time. We ought to reconnect.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I would love to see you. But I think that when I look at the amount of sacrifice that I made to raise my girls as a single dad, and now remarried with a baby, I'm not a halfway in person. I cannot imagine what this system is going to be like if we don't right this ship in this country soon. I
Yes.
mean, I really is it's
Do
really.
you feel though that maybe there's some hope because of Trump's election? If something is happening, Daniel, and I got to be honest with you, I'm almost dubious
Mm,
that it feels too good to be true. When Trump won and won handily and won the general election as well as the electoral college, and everybody, even in the blue states, there was huge amounts of people and Hispanics and blacks, and it's like this is impossible.
mm,
This happened, and suddenly Trudeau is saying, hey, maybe he's might have to step down, and all these. It's like this can't be this easy. This deep state is legit, and they ain't going to roll over.
no.
Oh, I guess we lost. Oh well. No, this is the major leagues where they kill people. They have fake charges. It's lawfare.
It's biblical. It's
Yes,
biblical.
yes. And it felt like, and I felt like this way for a long time, like God was wrapping things up. This is the first time in human history that a one world government was possible. And we saw it with what? Corona. It exposed everything.
Mm,
Oh, we can shut down your dang bank account. Oh, you want to vote that guy? guess what? You can't buy and sell. I just took your money away from you. A friend of mine, Wilson, started Give Send Go. It's a Christian fundraising site. So they had all these Canadian truckers that raised money to help them when they were protesting Trudeau. They froze their bank account, and the Canadian government sued them for like $300 million. I mean, this was totalitarianism on display worldwide with that corona, saying we're going to show you guys what it means when a couple of oligarchs and technocrats have decided to rule the world and show you what kind of power we got. And here we sat wondering, is it over? And buddy, they watched this worldwide, watched this election saying, if this girl gets in, it's over, because she wasn't going to give any freedom. It was
Well,
whatever needs to be done.
she was a puppet.
Yeah, of
For sure.
course. But
Yeah,
but the problem is that guess what? Biden's been a puppet for 4 years, and
for
look
sure.
what damage that crazy
Yeah,
lunatic has done.
yeah.
And frankly, that's not even true. He hasn't done anything. He's never done anything when
No.
somebody just ran the show, and we don't know who it was. But
Yes.
anyways, so it makes me wonder, could there be, Daniel, if he dismantles the FBI and restocks it with legit patriots, if he dismantles the Department of Education so that we don't have Marxism inculcating into our peoples, our kids, so that they actually love our nation, if he goes after those who've weaponized the Department of Justice and actually makes them suffer the consequences of a legit insurrection by trying to take power over a elected official. If he goes after a Millie who said during his election, I'm going to go speak to China and disregard what the commander in chief said and stink and court martial that guy. If he does, and he's got Robert Kennedy is on this, and then Vivesh Ramesh, and then suddenly we got the richest man. It seems crazy. Like, is this happening? So, anyways, is there some hope?
Yes, yes, there is. But I'm going to say that there's some requirements. First of all, what do you do when you have a wound that's infected? So we have a wound for sure as a nation, as a world. We have an infected wound. It takes a lot of pain to do it properly, which is you got to open it up. You got to clean it out. You got to disinfect it, scrub it with chemicals that hurt, that, antibiotics and blah, blah. And then you got to sew it up and let it heal. And I will use that analogy as what I think is going on. So now we got a guy who's the surgeon who's going to do this operation. We put him in place and we know it. And listen, this is going to hurt. This is going to hurt. But it won't be done. It can't be done. Here's the problem with the system. It can't be done in 4 years. So if we don't elect, probably the predecessor will be J.D. Vance as a young man. He'd be perfect to do 8 more after Trump. Let Trump get the ball. Let him be an advisor to J.D., blah, blah, blah. So I think it requires that, number one. Number two, and it also would require, and this is the hard part, it's going to require the other side of the aisle not trying to stymie everything they do. And so if you look at what's going on just on one issue, the wall right now, they're selling sections of the wall for $5 a piece, and the people that are grabbing them, it's worth grabbing them because in scrap metal alone, they're making hundreds of dollars. So they're going to take those pieces, so they're not there for Trump when they get there to build the wall and continue his plan. That's just, vicious. That's I'm taking my ball and I'm running home. Why would Biden allow that to happen? I mean, that's just sore loser stuff, Brad. So if we're going to see all that kind of stuff, and what I think they're also afraid of is you have to open that wound up and you have to clean it out. Cleaning it out is going to expose a lot of people. So here's what I'm going to tell you what I think. Just like I said, what was going to happen with the election that Biden wouldn't run and the FBI blacklisted me. And just like I said, he would sweep all 7 swing states, the battleground states. I'm going to tell you this, there's going to be violence in this country. There will be violence. Coming into January 20th, I think we're looking at certainly massive protests and people, because they're already trying to say he stole it. The same stuff they accused him of, which they did in 2016. Then Trump said in 2020, they're doing now. He stole it. It's illegal. We have proof. All of it's coming. I have another interesting thing to tell you about. I don't know if you heard this one yet, but anyway, there's subversive forces that are well beyond being the president. The president is a figurehead. It's guys who run giant countries and BlackRock and those guys where, suddenly there's a flood one town away from the city in North Carolina that has the largest quartz and lithium deposits right after the agreement was nullified by the residents, and suddenly the town gets washed away. Do they have at HARP, the ability to fire up gamma rays and microwave beams into the atmosphere to change the weather? Probably. Probably they do, Brad. So let's look at the drones for a second. The drones are up there, and I have a lot of friends that are, high-ranking and interesting scientists and in the military and everything else. And I got one laid on me yesterday that I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So why wouldn't we have shot one of these down? If they're the size of buses, just so, and they're flying up there, they're all over. And first it was, the stereotypical stuff that happens in the US about UFOs, which they've seen things they can't explain. Military fighter jets have gone up and testified. I saw them, it was moving very, very fast. And, I don't know what it is. Now, if it's one of ours or something we've developed, we're hiding that for what reason? I don't know. But this one, wow, really resonated for me. And it came from somebody who's, a pretty powerful guy. He said, they're ours. We put them up there. They have the capability to locate heat plumes when there's a nuclear device. And the intel that came to the US is that Iran or some other enemy of our country is going to sneak a suitcase bomb into the country and blow off an atomic bomb in one of our cities on the East Coast. And I thought, wow, that would make a lot of sense. They don't want to worry us about that. They don't want to tell us that. They can't tell us how they know that. And they're combing, trying to find whatever this is coming out on a boat or whatever it is. That made a lot of sense to me. Now, again, do I know that's true? No. But we're in a world where we're never going to be told anymore.
Yes.
We're never going to be told. When I watch the news, when I watch Cronkite with my father and I sat next to him, I will promise you that Walter Cronkite believed that what he was reporting to us was actual facts. And that he was telling, well, in Vietnam today, but and he would tell us what was going on. I no longer believe that to be true. I no longer believe the sources of information are agendized and they all have a theme that they're trying to serve and a master they're trying to serve, and that master is not God. Yep. So, but God's going to have the last laugh on this, Brad. God is going to have the last laugh. And when you start looking at the power of what the earth can do and what, the consequences of God's saber, I don't want to be in the way of that. I don't want to be in the way of that, and God will clean this. And so whether or not, again, is the asteroid that hits the the middle of Texas and resets everything, is that the reset? I don't know, but I got to tell you, we're moving in a direction that I hope we can see this and we can change it. If not, some catastrophic thing will happen. That'll reset itself. So I hope that Trump is the answer. I really do. I gambled that he was. I openly supported my career as, I'm down in my office at the house doing my podcast thing with you. And I do my own podcast and I talk about the Lord and I talk about, what really matters. And I'm a good husband and a faithful father. But I don't like where I think it's going to get ugly here first. I think it's going to be really ugly. Civil war ugly. Like it's going to be bad. I do.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't shock me, and it certainly was something that had to give because they kept pushing the good guys, the patriots, the people who care about the original intent of the Constitution, those of us who cared about freedom, those of us who cared about the ability to speak, those of us who cared about having simply the same access to the same platforms that everybody else had. When they started shutting down, doctors who came on Facebook or Instagram or whatever during Corona and said, look, I'm a virologist. This ain't the way to do this. Oh, well, you can't even speak. And, one thing I think I'm learning about this new world, because you said it right, man. We don't know what's true anymore. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
You may not like the truth, but at least it gives you access to how to navigate, because at least you know where you're supposed to head. When that is off the table, when we literally don't know what's true anymore, and of course with AI and with social media not being vetted, all bets are off. Somebody can just send any kind of crazy thing they created and say, look, a guy killed him with somebody, and it's like, I don't know. And that is a scary moment when you don't even know how to assess information to find out what is best. But that being said, I guess we now learned that one thing for sure, if you are forbidden to dissent, you're probably right, because that's all we saw. The people that said, "Can I question the election?" No, no, you can't speak, you can't talk, we might even arrest you. This must be true. Hey, can I let you all know that ivermectin's a pretty dang good way to take care of this, and it's actually a Nobel Prize winning drug, and this corona thing is going to give you myocarditis, and they're stealing your First Amendment rights if you don't want to have to take this thing, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, you're not allowed to speak, and we're going to get rid of you, and we might just take your medical license, and we might bring you up on charges. Okay, this guy's right. This is how we have to look at it. Those who are, who rules you is who you are forbidden to criticize. And so I think that's where we found ourselves, and that's what we have to fight for. But I'm a Christ follower, and as I tell people in my newest album, it hasn't come out yet, Laugh While It's Legal, but I'm saying to folks, if you're a Christ follower, you're the last truth teller on earth. You are the compass to true north. You have to, when we say don't water down your faith or don't apologize for it, it's not just because we want you to be true to your faith, which we do, and to honor Christ, and of course we want you to. You're the only way, you're the only compass left to help people know how to go home. You're it. And you're obligated to speak those truths and have the courage to let them hate you, because you would rather let them hate you, but at least you gave them the antidote. They don't
Well, I
have to.
think I think, Brad, what's happened and what we're facing now is that we've been told that we have certain rights. We've been told that we have certain beliefs, and that this country stands for certain things that it was founded on. And then as we reel them back more and more and more and more, we try to control the masses, to try to get them to do things like Corona was a great example, And so will the lights up in the sky, and so will the drones and everything. What's that going to look like if they stage an invasion of whatever it's
Which
going to be?
sounds so crazy, and now it's like, I guess this could really, it's like, I don't know what world we're living in. It's like a dream or a nightmare that
But
we can't wake up from.
but here's the difference. What is so sad about our country more than any place else? What's so sad is it seems like we've kind of given up. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Let's take Fruit Loops cereal. Fruit Loops cereal only in this country is the Fruit Loops that we eat. The Fruit Loops cereal that they serve all through Europe, all through Canada, has dyes in it that have been banned, that have absolutely unequivocally been proven to cause, not maybe, they cause cancer. So their American Medical Association equivalent or whatever said, their FDA said, you have to take that out. You cannot put that in the food anymore. In the US, they haven't done that. So in the continuum, we feed the children in boxed foods and packaged foods, and the grain that the cows and the chickens eat, stuff that we know causes cancer. And we feed it to them for 40 years. And then the same company that owns the packaging owns the stuff that you're going to take in order to treat the cancer. So we continue the circle until you're dead. Only in this country do we do that.
Yeah.
So again, and we know that to be fact. Robert F. Kennedy has been brought in to try to clean that up, but we've known it for years, and we just accept it instead of everyone going, "Hey, don't buy that cereal." None of us should buy that cereal.
Yeah.
Let's put them out of business until they change it. So with that said, I know what I was told my rights were, and I don't say this, and I'm sure now I'm going to get. And I've said it a couple other times, but not on a show like this where a lot of people would hear it. Hey, I'm ready to defend myself. I am absolutely ready to defend myself. I'm locked and loaded. And if you come to my door, and the sad thing is it could be my neighbor who's a cop, and I've been told that he must be shut down because it was some stupid law. If it goes against my constitutional rights, you're in for a fight.
What?
You're going to be in for a fight. There's going to be bloodshed.
Yeah.
This is going to be Civil War stuff. And I think that's what we're looking at with this guy, because the other side doesn't see the nature of their wrongs right now. They're messing around with people's freedoms.
Yeah.
They're messing around with people's, which is by which this country was settled for. So I think we're looking at, I hope, enough people that make sense of it, but I don't know that enough people care about it yet. So it might get a little hairy first. It might.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time. I think there was only 30% colonists were willing and ready to fight Great Britain to create this nation. It's not all it's usually a small group that are willing
Yeah.
to pay whatever cost is necessary. It is because I say this to everybody, but it was just true. I walked through Chicago O'Hare in 2020, no mask. I wouldn't do all that crap. And I'm filming myself because I'm watching this apocalyptic thing of everybody, oh, must wear a mask. And I literally thought, Daniel, they're all going to look at me and they're going to go, dang it, he's right. We're Americans. We can take our own risks. This is crazy. Blah, 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 blah. Are you kidding me? What I learned was this. Again, I've said it before, but I'm going to say it to you. Everybody thinks, Daniel, that they're the kid that says the emperor's naked, but you're not. You're the people that said, what a beautiful, beautiful silk pants and cloak you have there, Your Majesty. That's who most of you people are. And you proved it during Corona. They didn't steal your First Amendment rights, my brother and sisters. You gave them away
That's
because
right.
you were a coward. When they said close your business, if everybody said, you know what, we're not wearing that, we're not taking that, we're not closing down, we would have gotten through it like everything else. Economy would have been robust. People would have been free. And the rest of the world would have gone, I guess America's not doing it. Maybe we should reconsider. And we didn't. And there's a special, I think, of all the levels of hell, like Dante's Inferno, the deepest is cowards.
Mm.
You have.
Look at the money though, Brad.
Yeah.
Look at the money that was made
Of course.
on those people that had those vaccines. And I said, when they said to me, and believe me, if she got elected, there was going to be another one. And there's still going to be another. They're coming with another one because they showed how much money they can make. So they're going to come. They're in a lab right now brewing it, and they're going to have it come out, and they're going to turn it. And this time it's going to be more. And you die, maybe like 2 days.
That's
and they'll start wiping people out and say the only way you can make it, and they'll scare the crap out of everybody to stay in their home. I mean, they'll do it again. It worked. It worked, and no one called them on it. It was nonsense. So yeah, it's going to come again. It's going to come again.
Yeah, but here's the good news. God wins every time. And for those of us who are Christ followers, and this is not to defer to our obligation. I don't mean like, well, I'm going to heaven, whatever. No, I don't mean it like that. I have an obligation to redeem this culture. That's as a Christ follower to try to speak truth to the culture in the hopes that people repent. That's the point of truth. The point of truth is not to make you comfortable. It's to breach your conscience so you turn from your wickedness. That's what it's for. That's why many people say shouldn't shame, no fat shaming, no slut shaming. Why do they want to get rid of shame? Because shame is what triggers you, the Holy Spirit's ability to trigger you to repent. I'm off base. Let me go home. Let me get right with God. Let's get rid of that so there's no sense of a conviction. Well, we can't do that as believers, and we're forbidden to do that. Daniel, we were never called to be Christians. We were called to be disciples, and that means discipline. Christian is easy. Jesus did all the work. I died for you. I accept you as Lord and Savior. I'm suck. God sees me through your blood. I'm saved. Thank you, Jesus. I'm a Christian. That's easy because Jesus does all the work. But the rest of your life is work it out with fear and trembling as a disciple. That's up to me. And that is really hard because I'm not good at this. I'm a sinner saved by grace. I'm so it's so invigorating to talk to you, man, because you're a Christ follower, you're legit, you're unapologetic, you're courageous, and like I said, we met serendipitously or sovereignly, many years ago on a movie set. You know what, Daniel? We made a pretty good movie. That's kind of a sweet movie. It really
it's a good
is.
movie. Yeah, it is.
And
Great message. One of the few films in my career that my wife, who's much younger than me, was like, well, we should watch one of your movies. I'm like, I don't really like watching myself, but I always go, there's a couple movies we could watch. Like I would watch that with her for sure.
Well, but you know what I really loved of all of that entire film, Daniel. And by the way, folks, for those who didn't see that movie, I think it's on PureFlix streaming, and you probably can buy it. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a little surprise. I'm going to give you a quick clip of a couple shots of that film. And one of them is with me and Daniel. So what the heck? Let's show that clip real
Let's
quick, and
let's see
then
it.
we'll come right back.
Hope you got some good photos.
Reed Brothers.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Your wife next
That's
time.
it. Thanks, guys.
Woo!
Wow, they had great weather, right?
Oh, man, we got 20, 30 shots. Hey, Mitch.
I know everybody in town's talking about today. My contact from the cruise ship canceled. I'm not saying the deal's done. I don't know, Christmas Eve or something.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, we
Makes sense.
got you, Mitch. He's probably at home with his family.
I just thought it would only be right that I come down and tell you myself. You know, when I was a little kid growing up in this town, I was always jealous of you two. Never told you that before.
You gotta give him that money.
So see, apparently we kind of know how to do this little acting game. But the reason I showed you guys that particular clip with Daniel as well as one I did, but there was one I want to do with him was because A, we're here talking to each other, so it's kind of fun to
Right.
watch us suddenly playing characters. But it was also because it was a moment, I think if remember correctly, I don't remember if it was in the script. I think you kind of massaged that moment a little bit and said, you know what,
Yeah.
guys, I think I should make this more vulnerable. I think when you came in and you said, I was always jealous of you guys growing up, and you were like kind of brokenhearted and you were in shame because your little connection hadn't come, you'd lost everything. But if I'm not mistaken, you orchestrated that. You felt like this needs a little more weight and a little more beauty and a very simple thing. And it was a great scene.
Yeah, I
But
thought there was an opportunity to go beyond
yes,
what was in the words.
and you did that, and you made, and this is, I guess, full circle, a perfect way to kind of close up, is you made that character matter.
Mm.
That I got to feel for a moment what that poor guy went through, and his bluster was exposed, and he was just a regular guy trying to figure it out, and didn't know where to turn, but he was redeemed, and that's what
He was.
all stories are God's story.
Mhm.
We broke it and he fixed it, and the good guy wins in the end, whether you like it or not.
God
He,
wins.
he
God
really
wins.
does. God wins every time. But we
Yeah.
see that story through people and through things like that. Folks, I'm going to ask Daniel one more question. It goes to my subscribers who are part of the Militia of the Mind. Just gives me your email so I can let you know what I'm up to and my ministry and what I'm about. So I'm going to give a little special question that only you guys get to see. But it's really an interesting one. When I went to Wikipedia, which of course is completely ridiculous because none of
Right.
us ever write our own, and we end
Yeah.
up looking at where did you get that? But something popped up that I did find interesting, Daniel. So I'm going to bring it up to you. Actually, two things popped up. Your middle name is Leroy. Leroy?
Leroy. Yes.
Yeah, my middle name is Leroy. It's actually capital L-E, capital R-O-Y. So we have the same middle name, just pronounced differently. But I did stumble across this little tidbit that I found interesting. You were friends with DeFeo, who's the guy who murdered his family and
Yes.
created the Amityville horror story. It's a true story, this guy that killed his family. And then suddenly somebody came in and said it was a haunted story. We don't need to go into, an hour, but holy smoke, you knew a mass murderer who
Yeah, it
killed
was
his
Ronnie
family. Tell
Ronnie
me about
DeFeo.
that. Hey guys, I'm interrupting my own interview. If you want the answer that you haven't heard yet, go to bradstein.com and join one of the 3 tiers. It is the Militia of the Mind, it is the Warrior level, or it is the Special Forces. And then you'll get all kinds of special content and bonus answers to make you smarter than you could ever imagine. Go there now, jump on and join the Mighty 10,000. But we do need to come back together and talk again. It was, we've always kind of haphazardly stayed in touch. But I got to say something, I am humbled. You've always been very kind to me. You've given me nice accolades and compliments that I've never expected or ever assumed for a second that you were
Well,
paying
well,
attention to my
Brad,
life. And so it's very kind of you. And it makes me feel kind of, I guess what I'm saying is, you live your life, you don't know if you've ever affected anybody. You almost wonder, did I do anything? Did I do anything?
yeah,
Because
that's what I want you
you
to get at. That's what I want you to see out of this. I don't think you understand the influence that being around somebody like you on the set, and then my desperately, as you put it, wanting you to understand, hey, I'm with you, bro.
yeah.
Like you did it before me,
Hmm.
you did it and made it part of your niche. And I turned around and I wanted you to know, hey, that affects other people, bro.
Hmm.
That affects other people more than
Yeah.
you think.
Yeah. Well, I don't. And so and I just say that not because I'm searching for accolades. It sometimes it helps me, Daniel. It's a hard road. Um, being a true disciple. It's hard because you're hated. I mean, literally, Jesus said, one of the ways you'll know if you're mine is they'll hate you for this because you are exposing the dark and they can't stand to be exposed. And so it makes me feel good, A, that something I did, knowing my own degradations and, and darkness, has helped you or anybody helps me feel like, well, maybe there was some reason for me to exist on my little season on Earth. Um, and it's nice to know there's people on my side and in the same camp fighting the good fight together because we need each other. It does feel lonely. Yeah, my career was destroyed when I said I'm a Christian comedian in the mainstream. But you know what,
Mm.
Daniel? Life is too short to worry about anything but knowing God and sharing Him. That is the meaning of life. Know
Amen.
God and tell
Amen.
others. And how
But
you do that is your skill sets, is your workplace environment, is your friends, your family, all those elements of the road and the journey you're on is the way you disseminate that information. But life is very simple. Know your
but Brad,
creator.
Brad, I want you to think about something. I want to close on this if
Yeah.
we can. Look at the number of people. It doesn't matter whether it's 100,000, whether it's 5,000, whether it's five. Look at the number of people who are going to watch this. This communication of faith that we just did,
Mm.
that are the ones in their office that aren't telling the dirty joke, that aren't drinking and drugging, that aren't doing whatever, that are actually um, God-fearing, dedicated, faithful Christian men and women that may not have as many outlets to go to at their workplace, in their community, even in their own church. Just because they go to church doesn't mean anything to me. And you give them an outlet for hope. You give them an outlet as somebody who actually sacrificed because, first of all, whether people have seen your comedy or not, you're very funny. That's a timing thing. So the fact that you choose to use the material that you use and that it's faith-based material doesn't mean you couldn't have said all the four-letter words and done all the other stuff and been really funny and made a lot of money doing it. But there's a group of people that really matter, that you really matter to, that you feed their life. You feed their way of life. So please don't forget that. It's really important, that you are. It's a refreshment, and it's a consolidation of belief
Hmm.
when you see somebody who not just talks the talk but walks it too, and it makes you think, hey, I can do that. I can do that. I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. When my friends say, yeah, but if you just came on the bachelor weekend to Vegas, your career would go a lot better in this real estate firm. Like, yeah, I'm not interested in that debauchery. I'm married. I love my wife. I love being a dad. I'm a Christian man that has a set of rules. We have a playbook. It's a playbook. It's called the Holy Bible. And the Bible tells you, it lays it right out there for you. So for people out there, I always say, do you read your Bible? Because it's a fascinatingly amazing book that makes it very, very clear what God asks of you. It really does. It's a big book. It can be ominous. It can be feel overwhelming to read. Just read a couple pages at a time. You could take 3 years to read it. Doesn't matter. Read your Bible. You live those words. You live the playbook.
Hmm.
Don't ever, ever be ashamed or apologetic about doing that, bro. We live to hear you do it.
Hmm. Well, like I said, man, it's, I have my own battles and do struggle with the hiddenness of God at times. And sometimes I say, I would sure love to talk to you, Lord. I'd sure wish you would put your arm around me every now and again as a father, because I could use that. The way he does it is through people and through situations. And so, again, I didn't expect that, but I want you to know it means a lot for you to say
Yeah,
those
bro.
things, because it helps me feel like, okay, maybe I have something to add. Again, I don't want to belabor that. We've gone through it, but thank you for
Yeah,
doing
bro.
that. And I think we need to all be more aware of, lift people up, man. They can use it. You don't know where they're at, and just try to lift them up, folks. This is my friend Daniel Baldwin, who took time to be with us. I hope you learned from it. I hope you saw that his life has its regrets and its victories, but in the end, he found Christ, and he's not afraid to speak about it. And this is what it means, guys. You don't have to jettison your intellect. You don't have to be some kind of rube that has nothing interesting to bring to the table. You can be a professional actor. You can be lots of things, but in the end, what have you done with God? That's what's going to last forever. So that's where you want to focus. And remember, guys, if they ever say you're being politically incorrect, always do what I say. Just tell them thanks for the compliment.
Right.
Nothing more important than not fighting, allowing yourself to fall for the cultural Marxism that has tried to destroy the West. You're a Christ follower, or you live in a Christian nation, whether you like it or not. Be grateful for that. Freedom is something that will not come back if you give it away. And folks, I'm just a comic. Daniel's just an actor, but together we're making a difference, and so are you. And I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do, which is what? I'm just putting the woke back to sleep. See you next week.
Oh, whoa. We're not getting off yet.
We're not getting off. I had to close it up.
Did you stop recording?
No, we're still recording.
Oh, good, bro. As I say at the end of every podcast I do, and I'm gonna ask this of you. You don't have to do it. I say, and that concludes another DB Uncensored, Daniel Baldwin Uncensored, my show. And as I do every show, when I end in a prayer. And so, if you are not one that follows prayer or believes in prayer or likes to practice prayer, then you can turn your device off now. And if you are one, then please know. And if I would be so honored, Brad, if you would pray us out.
Oh, absolutely. Father God, I thank you that you're the living God, the giver of every good and perfect gift. I thank you that you died and did all the work for us, that you dimensionalized yourself. You became one of us. You touched us. You talked with us. You laughed with us. You walked with us. And you proved it through history. We can actually read about a real guy named Jesus who really showed up, was really seen, and people were willing to die because they said, I've seen the impossible. Man died and came back from life. You are the only one in human history that proved you were real. You're not a cult. You're not a myth. You really did the impossible, and you did it because you made us, and you said, I'm not abandoning my creation, and I'm not making a new batch. I'm going to use who I started with. I'm going to die for him so they can know me forever. Father, thank you for Daniel and his commitment to you. Give him continued strength as he walks his life, as you give him new insight and wisdom, and just his ability to influence people, because he has a lot of influence. Father, just continue to guide and direct me. I don't know what I'm doing, but hey, as long as I get out of the way myself, it means you can do your work. I pray that our friendship perhaps could grow and get even deeper, because we do have a unique skill set. Not everybody can do it, and so it does give us ability to kind of understand each other in a way that's different than most people who aren't in the artistic community. So, Father, thank you for your son. Thank you for this Christmas season that reminds us of what you've done for us. And I just pray your blessing upon his family and mine. And thank you that we are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.